Good evening, guys, and welcome to Saturday Night Pontificating with Pete on Revolutionary Change. I got to tell you, this is kind of me flying solo tonight, so hang on to your seats because Colin is not here, and neither is Jen. Now, I hope that we have our good friend, Mr. Boyle, hanging things around of course, in the chat this evening for our mod, but we will have my friend, I believe, making sure, Osiris from Stuck in the Middle podcast, who will join us at the 8 o'clock Eastern time hour. And yes, David Hunter, it does look like the channel is incredibly charging full blast towards 50,000 subscribers. As we start this evening, we are sitting at exactly 49,320 subscribers, so less than 700 away from hitting 50,000. And even a month ago, 2 months ago, who could have ever thought that we would be heading for this as quickly as we have been? But it is a testament to, I would say, in large part, persistency. You know, we've obviously been at this for a while. And of course, it does take some luck, because as you know, we are not on the algorithm. And we do have to make, certain moves from time to time in order to get us where we need to go. But with that said, we are doing pretty well. And of course, we would ask that each and every one of you that are here this evening, please smash that like button. Let's get this live stream out to as many people as possible. Obviously, it is Saturday night. This is usually the night we do the best numbers. So it really does, it says for me, Q&A video. Yes, actually, what we are going to do, for those of you who have been following, we do a monthly call-in show, and we usually will do that on the first Saturday of the month. Obviously, if we do hone in on 50,000 subscribers sooner than that, I would think we would probably do a call-in show sooner to kind of allow everybody to come on board and, just share their sentiments and whatnot. But, obviously we are hopefully to get to 100,000 subscribers one day, but one step at a time. Let's get to that first rung on the ladder. That is a huge step in our growth. As I mentioned, if you just go back and look at the kind of the growth angle of where our show was at, just prior to Jen leaving for her trip to Ireland, talk about bringing the luck of the Irish with her and back here. At the time, I want to say we were sitting at, like 27, 28,000 subscribers. It was something in that neighborhood. And then the next thing you know, we go on this massive surge over the past few weeks. And lo and behold, we are on the precipice of getting to 50,000 subscribers. So that's for each and every one of you guys. We do this as a group, the Revolutionary Change channel, if you will. And so if you are here, as I mentioned, please smash that like button. Please make sure that you are subscribed. Please make sure that you share the stream. And the more people that can see this, obviously, it will get to a lot more people. And of course, that's what we have learned over the last 24 hours, I would say. We had another clip go viral. Our clip regarding Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk is closing in on, I want to say, like 27 or 28,000 views. And obviously that has in turn allowed us to grow several hundred more subscribers over that time. And it's always interesting when you get to meet a whole plethora of new people and more or less sort of their vision, if you will, of how we can grow our future without having to necessarily be ideologically divided. And I say that because the place that I want to open up this evening is on the post that I just dropped a little while ago regarding what happened the other day when Zohran Mamdani, who is the mayoral frontrunner for New York City's next chief executive, which will be held in early November. We are 2.5 months away. But what I will say, which I think is very important, and to keep this in mind, the closer that Zohran gets to the finish line, the more you are going to see the crazies come out of the woodwork and try to knock him off his perch. That is going to be a consistent occurrence on the campaign trail, depending on where he is. But we do want to give a shout out to Zohran because he has made it very clear that he wants to be the mayor for all citizens of New York, not just the ones that are in the heavier Democratic-leaning pockets. like Manhattan and the Bronx and Brooklyn. He's talking to the people in Queens, and he's especially talking to the people in Staten Island. And this is a clip from from the speech that he gave the other day at a rally that he did in Staten Island, to his credit.
How we doing, Staten Island? I didn't know it was going to be such a cool day today. It is such a pleasure to be here with you. The borough that continues to teach New York City the possibility of free transit. Because despite the caricatures of this island and this borough, we know that progressive ideas have a home here.
Right off the bat, he's leaning into the economic issue that exists for so many working class and poor individuals who live in Staten Island. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Staten Island, yes, Matt Stewart actually is an island. I mean, you want to talk about brutal transportation options. I mean, it doesn't really get any worse than Staten Island. So it is kind of amazing that he or any of these, it's not even MAGA. It's just, it's the idea that this guy is a socialist and he's a commie and all the tropes that are thrown in the direction of somebody who wants to bring a little taste of social democracy to a major city that hasn't felt it in generations, quite honestly. And so rather than just focusing on the primary areas where he's going to get the vote out, he's trying to bring the attention to the borough that would benefit the most by far if there were improvements in transportation. So kudos to him for going into deep red Staten Island and trying to bring his message. I mean, he's taking absolutely no chances on this election. To his credit, he's going for it.
Just like so many others. And an island that we know is not immune from this horrific crackdown we are seeing from the Trump administration. For too long, too many of us have been afraid to make the case. All right. Yeah. All right. We have been embarrassed of our own ideas and ideals. Right. And part of the reason that I stand before you as the Democratic nominee is that I went everywhere. All right. I spoke to New Yorkers who voted for Trump, whether on Fordham Road or Hillside Avenue. And I did not lecture them, I listened to them. Yes. And I know that though there are Staten Islanders who are passionate in their support for Donald Trump, there are some of those who voted for both of us.
That's true. It was also pointed out after the November election last year that there were a lot of Trump voters in Queens that voted for Trump and for AOC. Now, obviously, we have a difference of opinion about AOC compared to Zohran. Nevertheless, it is understandable why that would be the case. The whole dynamics regarding politics is changing in the United States. It's changing every day. The whole red versus blue divide, those lines are being broken down day by day, moment to moment. And this should come as absolutely no surprise with somebody like Zohran, who is a non-corporate anti-Zio candidate speaking to the issues that are affecting the overwhelming majority of citizens in the city, of which it is the biggest city in our country. And probably as much as 80% of residents in New York City, David Hunter can attest to this, so can several others. Even if you're not living in poverty, you're not exactly living high on the hog. In fact, you may just be one slip and fall away from being in hell in more ways than one. And so credit to Zohran for going right in there without hesitation and saying, we're going to take the vote to Staten Island. We're going to show them that their voice matters here, even in a borough that has been essentially forgotten because it tends to vote red, very red. But that's no excuse. Everyone's voice needs to be heard.
And I do not blame them, because what they may have heard is a through line in just how suffocating this cost of living crisis is. Yeah. But while Donald Trump ran on the promise of cheaper groceries, he has delivered cuts to SNAP. Yeah. What separates me from him, one of the key differences, is that I mean what I say. And the reason that Donald Trump has threatened to deport me, to arrest me, to denaturalize me, is because he knows that when we deliver on this platform, it will throw into stark relief his betrayal of those same working class Americans on a message of affordability.
Yeah, but here's the thing that nobody's talking about, which I think is key. And if you just listen to what Zohran is saying, it's very important. He's talking about the betrayal of Donald Trump to working class Americans. Here's the dirty little secret that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that happened this week. It's also a betrayal of the working class Americans that was brought to us by years and years, generations, if you will, of neoliberal Democratic Party politics, most recently, of course, by Barack Obama, who did reach out to Zohran this week. Clearly, for whatever reason he decided to do that, he's trying to soften him up, I'm sure. But I think Zohran fully understands his position right now. I think he understands how close he is to pulling this off, and that he doesn't have to really make these untenable type favors, promises that will basically put him behind the eight ball of the needs of working people and the needs of corporate special interests. It would appear that he is pulling away in this race, and that the strategy now is to derail him after it's all said and done. Let him get in, and then we'll deal with him. We'll stonewall him at every turn, and then we'll show America that this socialism, if you will, as they're going to paint it, doesn't work. Stop trying to make it happen. Goodbye. Nope. No. No, real change is coming. And I'd like to think a lot of people are starting to pick up on that. But that's not the reason why I'm showing you this clip today. We all know that Zohran is great on the stump. There's a lot of great things to say. And again, take it with a grain of salt. He's doing things that I don't agree with, including what apparently was a meeting with Jamie Dimon of all people this week. As I said, let's hear him out. Let's see what he can do until he starts taking that corporate money and starts making decisions that go against the needs and the will of the people of New York City. I think is based on what he's accomplished already, he deserves that grace. So let's give it to him. With that said, there was an incident, for those of you who may not be aware. There was an incident that took place at this event in which a Zionist, as I would say, decided to come after him. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Scott Lebedo, but you're going to get familiar with him right now because he decided to show up at this very event and cause a stir, a very big stir that was captured on video, and you'll see what happened.
It's the communist. Sorry, I want something to eat. I would like something to eat. Let me tell you something, man. You are not welcome in this island. October 7th, Jew hater. You fucking Jew hater piece. Hey, Mr. Mamdani, can I talk to you? This is my island. You're not welcome here. Fuck. Excuse me. You hate Jews. You hate this country. You hate this big shot full of Tom Holman. Don't go home. Go home.
So evidently they found out about this event, and this guy Lebedo decided to make a big stink, but also physically threaten him. And of course, he ended up getting arrested as a result. Now, for those of you who don't know who Scott Lebedo is, I'm going to enlighten you all. He's actually a pretty gifted artist. I don't want to take away from his skill set. He does all things pro-America, of course, very pro-Trump. But we have to hear what the man really thinks in his very diluted brain. But there's a reason I'm bringing this up. I'm bringing this up because most of you have to understand that the closer Zohran gets to the brass ring, the more dangerous things are going to get. This is just the beginning. But this guy was clearly there to try to intimidate him. And who's to say that this is going to stop here? Again, typical Staten Island Guido, trying to act like a tough guy, always a tough guy around somebody who is not as physically as imposing as he is. Like I said, typical. But this is from the wit and enlightenment of the guy who decided to get himself arrested and then have this to say post his arrest regarding Zohran Mamdani.
You ever throw a surprise party? You know how hard it is to keep it quiet so the participant who it's for doesn't find out? Well, folks, I'm gonna put another notch on my belt. Surprise party king, right there, because it was perfect yesterday. Everybody that...
What was perfect about it? That you showed up with a bunch of psychos that were screaming for Israel. You know, it's one thing if you actually showed up and were saying your policies suck, you're hurting Staten Island. No, he showed up to bitch to him about the fact that he's not pro-Israel or that he's a Muslim. Get the hell out of here, Indian, brownie. It's one thing about the Italians, more specifically the Sicilians. If you all have not seen the movie True Romance, I highly recommend that you do. Now, I've met a lot of people in my life of all different shapes and sizes, of all different walks. And I could tell you, bar none, the most bigoted men towards the black community are Sicilian men. They're the most bigoted that I've ever seen. I'm not saying they're all like that. Far from it. But let me tell you something about these guys in Staten Island. When they talk about the, excuse my English here, but the Moulignans that live in the certain neighborhoods, this is that guy. That guy, that's this guy. That's him. And you know why? You want to know why he talks like this? You want to know why he looks like that? I'll tell you why. Because he knows that he's got black blood running through his veins. And he hates it. He hates himself. He projects. And that is why no one gets more upset when it comes to questioning whether or not Christopher Columbus was a bad hombre than Sicilians like him. Absolutely lost his mind. So that's the type of guy that really hates Zohran Mamdani. And so the fact that he's talking a certain way, projecting himself a certain way, is just so stereotypical. This is the type of person that I would expect would hate Zohran Mamdani. It's another thing entirely that he's going there to physically impose himself on him. This is a warning shot. Keep in mind, the election is not for another 2.5 months. A lot of things can happen between now and the beginning of November. And he's trying to send a message that, hey, you better watch your back, kid. We may not be able to beat you at the ballot box, but we could beat you in other ways. Gabagoo? That's what he's saying.
I was involved, all the other guests that came, quiet until we got there, and he showed up, and he was trying to come through the side door, not even in the front door, and we came running at him. Surprise, motherfucker! Yeah, and then he got slammed right into the side door. His security, imagine that. This big detail security. All due respect to you guys, there was a little pushing and shoving going on. You're doing your job. It is what it is. Everything's all, hey, all spare and love and war. So God bless you. But anyway, we went storming in the front. There was about 30, 40 of us, whatever. There was about 10 of us.
No, there wasn't. There was only a few of you. It wasn't a big deal. You make it seem, you know, again, they learned from Trump. It was a really great event. There were 25,000 people there. Sir, there were 2,500 people there. It doesn't matter. Add another zero. It sounds really great. We showed up with 40 people. No, there was like 2 or 3 guys shouting with you. Amazing that that's what he's complaining about. Douchebag.
His fucking people there. And we got, that guy knew who we were. And I did a little bit of this also to...
Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? I'm the guy that sucks off Trump every chance I get. Have you seen the fabulous bacons I make? They're as tasty as a pizza pie. It's unfortunate, but Staten Island has great pizza. I got to give them up for that. This is why I do what I do.
Honor my good friend Tom Homan, because if you remember, that's how Mr. Mamdani became famous a few months ago, before this whole election, when he was screaming at Tom Homan in D.C. with his suit on, letting everybody know that he's a runner-up. You're bad. Look at me. You're bad, and I'm going to get you. Fuck out of here. Tommy.
Got it. I don't even know what he's talking about. Let me tell you something. You know, the one thing that doesn't get talked about, which is why these, the fact that these guys are so caught up in this immigration issue. We're going to get to that in a minute. Don't you worry, because that's coming next. But let me assure you that a paisano like this, he's bad for other paisanos. He makes them look bad. He's every walking, talking stereotype of the worst kind of wops that you could possibly imagine. And he loves it. He's so proud of being the worst type of Italian. The worst stereotypes. You know, I went to high school with Mike Sorrentino, the situation from the Jersey Shore. I don't know if I ever told you guys that before, but it is the worst representation of Italian culture. The worst kind. But that's typically what makes it onto TV. Then you have The Sopranos, and you have Gandolfini talking about, you know, the worst type of reputation that come with the Italians. You know, they're really bad to us as people. They disrespect the Bing. They disrespect this. Again, it's not helping, which is also why, if you're not aware of this, if you talk to real Italians, I'm talking people from Italy, they do not associate with these type of Italians. They think they're all guinea wops. They want nothing to do with them. Italian Americans versus Italians. Two very different cultures, extremely different. So when they try to embrace themselves and wrap themselves around the Italian flag and the Italian horn and the big cross, and they're like, oh yeah, totally, you know, this is me. The real Italians over in Italy, they look at these people like the dog shit. Like that, this is not a representative of our culture, of our people. Not at all. And yet this guy thinks he's hot shit. Thinks that this is the type of behavior that's appropriate. Let me get somebody who is crazy enough, because I actually care about my life. As you can see, he does do pretty good paintings of the American flag. He's a good artist. I'm not going to take that away from him. But what I will say is that he's hoping he triggers somebody who really is a nut job that lives in the city that's going to go up and take care of Mamdani. That's what he's hoping for. And it's not just the fact that he is perceiving him to be this anti-Israel Muslim, if you will. He also has bought into this idea that if, God forbid, somebody like Mamdani gets in there and some elements of socialism is brought into the big city, it's going to kill their ability to keep making money hand over fist. That's their real worry. That's the big concern. They can say it's about Israel, and for a lot of them it is. But for a Catholic like this, I highly doubt he gives a shit. He may have friends that he does business with that loves Israel, especially, I mean, there's not much of a Jewish population in Staten Island, so I don't know exactly where, you know, he's finding himself like overly concerned about this. The only thing that really does make sense is the fact that he loves Trump so much, he wishes he was married to him, that because Trump loves Israel, by extension, he has to love it too. That's what it's about.
I made that guy look like a little fucking crying schoolgirl, all due respect to schoolgirls. But yesterday, because every word out of my mouth had to be bleeped, did I give it to him right to his face. Anyway, it's good to know that he's seen my face now and he knows Uncle Scotty and my crew of patriots that are going to be following this cocksucker around my city, our city, until November.
Just remember, most of Staten Island is not regarded as much of anything. They don't even really want you as part of the city. In fact, when we think about the fifth borough, more people would associate Jersey City or Hoboken than they would Staten Island. It's like its own little enclave that just happens to have a train that connects into the city. But you're really no different when you think about it. You're not part of the main island. You're separated from it. You might as well be your own state if you really wanted to be. But this guy, the way he talks about Mamdani, yeah, this is how Guidos talk. This is how they talk. I grew up with these guys. I know what they're about. Some of them I love, and some of them I can't stand. Trust me, I've been around all of it, as I said. I've seen it all. This guy really loves to hear himself talk. And unfortunately, I do worry about Zohran's safety. And I don't necessarily worry about it from a guy like this, because this guy's not going to do shit. He talks a big game, but he ain't doing anything. Now, is he hoping, against all hope, that he gets some nut job to do the job for him and for all of his paisanos and Zionazis and everybody who stands to lose a little something of their very rich pie if, God forbid, somebody like Mamdani takes over New York City? Yeah. Yeah, he 1,000% is hoping something like that happens. I'd like to think it won't happen, but who's to say? With the way things are going right now, people are absolutely nuts, and the city is upside down and inside out. He's got a little bit more to say, so let's not, neglect our, new bumbling moron of the week.
Anyway, the beauty of this whole thing is that we got him. You got it? And we could tell we got him because you can see that shit-eating grin that he walks around with when he's petrified. It's like with his little fake dimple. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Meanwhile, we know we could smell the load of shit in his fucking panties when we stormed that fucking joint. Apologies to the restaurant as well. If anything was broken, I don't think so, because we're not that kind of people. But
trust me, no one's going to serve you again. And you know what's going to end up happening? You're going to be on a lot of people's watch list yourself. If they see you showing up to their joint, they're not going to serve you. That's what's going to happen. That's how they roll. Yeah, we went into the frickin' joint and we took care of this little Mamdani. Me and my 40 other guys, because I'm a big fucking pussy myself. I couldn't take care of him on my own. I got 20 guys in front of me who are pushing him back because they know that if he actually came up to me, he'd probably give me a 1-2 combination of my jaw and I'd be out for the count. Yeah, that would suck. Again, big talker from a big distance. Not a big talker from a little distance. You insulted him a little bit, all right? You insulted him a little bit. And I don't think things are going to go well for you. That's the problem. You insulted him a little bit. And that's why we know the future in this country is possibly worth salvaging. Because a lot of people are waking up to this. This douchebag, his way of doing business is over. It's finished, as they say in The Godfather. It's a new world order that we're coming into now. I don't want people to make any, assumptions about what is and what isn't going to happen. But I'd like to believe that this is only temporary for a guy like this. So, okay, Mr. Lebedo, you made your point. You look like a moron. You're not going to end up doing anything to benefit those that desperately need help. The only thing you're going to do is look out for your bottom line, because that's the only thing that ever mattered to you. And that's the reason why anyone who sees this is going to regard you as a moron and as bad a representative of Italian culture as you could possibly be. So here's to Zohran. He's on his way. Keep fighting the good fight, brother. Now, I say this because when we talk about the stories that really do matter, and the reason why somebody like Zohran's message is resonating with a lot of people, there's a reason for it. There's a reason his message is resonating. And I assume that those of you that are familiar with some of these bigger accounts online, particularly when it comes to The two in particular are Wall Street Apes and Wall Street Silver. Now, they posted this clip the other day from some lady who apparently is going through a very difficult economic time right now. And she's like a lot of us, having a hard time putting food on the table. And so here's what she had to say. And you're going to hear exactly what Wall Street Apes and Wall Street Silver had to say.
So I don't normally ever come on here and post anything except of my dog because he's absolutely gorgeous.
I would be the first to say right off the bat that if the content that you are placing on here is about your dog, I'm with you 1,000%. In fact, when I go on to Instagram or any of the social media sites, that's all I want to see. It's the only thing that really makes me happy is the dog content. In fact, I'm kind of hooked right now on one of the dog content creators that's a chiropractor specifically for dogs and cats. Let me tell you, it's absolutely heartwarming seeing their reactions when they get that physical relief that they desperately need. So right off the bat, I like this girl.
But I am extremely frustrated being a full-time employed person living in Florida and not being able to afford to live. I have spent my whole fucking day off trying to find a, more affordable place to live because I can't afford fucking $1,300 a month in rent and then fucking a $650 car note and then $300 in fucking insurance and then you got utilities and it's just it's either I eat or I pay my bills and then even then it's like, okay, well, which bill's gonna be fucking late this month?
You think that this isn't a problem that is happening to millions of people? And I see what you guys are saying in the chat. I'm not blind. Yeah, because she's a good-looking girl, she's going to get a lot of attention. But she's just one of millions that are going through this. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if it was something between 50 and 100 million people are facing the same economic crisis that she's facing. When we talk about the failed system, that's a big problem. And she is in the state of Florida. I noticed people were mentioning in the chat the cost of driving a car. Yeah, this state sucks for insurance. This state sucks for lease payments, ownership payments. This is a bad state to have a car, let me tell you. Very expensive. And I'm talking any basic car. I have a very basic car, and I pay a heck of a lot more than I should have to pay for. So I totally understand where she's coming from.
And I'm so fucking sick of it. Like all these fucking apartment complexes and realtors and even private renters, fuck you. Fuck you so fucking hard.
So here's what I can say. And this is a problem all throughout, Southwest Florida in particular, Bonita Springs, which is just north of Naples. Then you have places like Sarasota. Tampa in particular is taking it as badly as any place in the state right now. And when she specifies her disdain towards those in the real estate industry, I totally understand where she's coming from. Like, I don't discount that for 1 second, and neither should anybody else. That is a big part of this problem. When I look online, there's a couple of Instagram accounts that I follow because, as you guys probably have heard before, that I am in commercial real estate. Whenever it comes to the issue of, let's say, Zohran or progressive policies, especially when it relates to commercial real estate, no one is louder about not changing anything than those who are realtors, primarily. We have this thing in Florida, and I believe it's nationwide, NARS, or NAR, National Association of Realtors. Now, if you guys are not familiar with that, look it up. Now, that's not just a group that supports other realtors. In fact, far from it. What it actually is a lobbying group that goes to Capitol Hill and lines the pockets of both political parties' federally elected representatives and gets them to do things to benefit them and not benefit the people who are living in communities like this lady, Tay, is living in, as she is suffering from on the regular. If you're familiar with Blackstone, Starwood, or any of these REITs, real estate investment trusts, now their intention is profit. Nothing more, nothing less. And in their haste, they will go into these communities, buy them up, and if shit hits the fan, it's not a big deal. Because at the end of the day, they could just go into another market and try again. Why do you think Grant Cardone gets away with what he gets away with? Because he's backed by Blackstone. Again, very important to know that. Their concern for their communities are non-existent. It does not enter their mind. They don't care one iota about any of these people. When we talk about corporate special interests and the drag on society that they are and that they represent, here's the pretty white girl that goes on and makes a video. Now all of a sudden people are going to care because the pretty white girl is struggling on with her daily life. I hate to say it, but a pretty face goes a long way when it comes to this shit. Oh my God, it's so terrible. What can we do to help that girl? I can help her. I can help her. No, the problem is the system. System's broken. System is broken. And it is eating us all alive. I have to deal with it on a regular basis. I see it all the time. It's all there, right in front of you. And she's living it. And by that measure, we have to ask ourselves, why is this happening? So I am going to read to you exactly what was written. This is very important stuff, but I'm going to get to it in a minute. And what I will say, which again, I got to find this thing. There it is. Okay. We're going to finish this out, and you guys are going to see exactly what I mean.
And I mean that with everything in me. Fuck you. I, nor anybody else, should be working 60 plus hours a fucking week and not be able to fucking live. I'm about to crash the fuck out. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me losing my fucking mind.
No. And I don't want to hear nothing about, oh, she's just a crazy girl or whatever. I know that stereotype, that bullshit. Here's what I'm going to tell you guys, and this is the important part. So the reason I was able to discover this was because if you guys are not familiar with Wall Street Apes or Wall Street Mav, two huge accounts on X and huge supporters of Trump. Honestly, it doesn't really matter what side of the political aisle you fall under on this. It's all relative to whether or not we're honest about where things currently stand in this country pertaining to the issues of capitalism. And obviously, cost of living, real estate, etc., ends up playing an outsized role. And as a result, here we stand trying to figure out how we got here. So in the haste of, in this case, Wall Street Apes, putting out a message regarding this young lady, Tay, and what she's experiencing right now, here's what they had to say. American works 60 hours a week and spend all day looking for a cheaper place to live, but still can't afford anything. The cost of rent in America is a national emergency. Right. It is a national emergency. But Wall Street Mav, who I believe he's partnered with, came in and had to say, the best way to solve this is to deport 10 million illegal aliens. That's the problem. Imagine the impact on apartment rental prices as all of those apartments come onto the market and landlords need to lure paying tenants. You know, for somebody who clearly isn't in real estate, he really doesn't know a goddamn thing about it. He may know a thing or two about stocks if that's what he's into. But what I can assure you is that Wall Street apes, more so Wall Street Mav, do not know what the hell they're talking about. That's not what the problem is. The reason why this lady is dealing with what she's dealing with is because multinational corporations are allowed to break the law every day by employing people for slave wage. So when we're all pointing the finger, whether it's at Trump or Biden or Obama or Clinton or Bush, whoever, it's still the same problem. It's not them. It's the people who own them. The multinational corporations, whether it's Bezos' Amazon, whether it's the Walton family's Walmart, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. You know what they have in common? They want to pay people the least amount of money legally that they can get away with. Hence why the minimum wage never changes. Even though I am more of a proponent of organized labor growth, but nevertheless, tuition-free trade schools, even tuition-free college at the state level, and public colleges that. And that's never getting talked about. You see, that's not what's coming out of their mouths, because then you would have to question capitalism even just a little bit. But they can't do that. And you know why? Because they're paid very well. That's how their accounts get to be 1.5, 2 million deep, which ends up paying them quite a bit of money, as we know. That's why these accounts grow to the extent that they grow to, because they never properly critique the problem. It's always, it's the illegals. That's the real problem. That's why we can't have. Let's just assume that that is the case. Who's bringing them here? Who's letting them in? You think this is a Biden thing? You think this is a Democrat thing? No, you morons. This is a both sides of the same empirical coin that are doing it. It is financially beneficial to screw over naturalized American citizens to bring people in from desperate situations and let them work for pennies on the dollar so they can get more rich. This is not complicated. There is no crazy conspiracy here. There is a reason she can't afford to live like so many other Floridians and so many others throughout the country. It's the same fucking story every time. That's why you have people threatening to kill Zohran Mamdani, because they know that if he takes off, it'll have a ripple effect. And it isn't going to be in the Democratic Party, that much I'm sure of. But in terms of local municipality opportunity that is going to be out there, as far as the opportunity to elect somebody like Zohran, that's one. Now you've got places like Iowa City, whose city council is making sure that everything is off the table or is no longer on the table regarding Israel. They will no longer be a part of our financial decisions. They're out. And you know what? You could duplicate that everywhere. So when people want to know why the fuck they can't afford to live, just know that it is the multinational corporations. In the case of real estate, it is the multinational corporations of real estate that fuck it up for everybody else who's trying to do an honest job. That's the problem. They don't care. And they sure as hell do not care about the people living in these places. Not even a little bit. In fact, they really are still under this illusion that they can get away with this forever. That there is no way conceivable that this is not going to end in their favor. That somehow, some way, things will ultimately return to normal and that this problem will just go away. But that's not what's happening. It's going to get worse. A hell of a lot worse. And when, as I said, good-looking women like her start doing this on the regular, let me tell you something. This ain't no purple-haired, hippy-dippy liberal doing this. This is clearly a Floridian conservative who's doing it. And when those types of people start doing it, watch the fuck out, because that's when change is going to come. It's going to come from people like her. And it's she not letting up. She knows the score. But these douchebags that are adjacent to, whether it's MAGA, whether it's the GOP, the same is true for the shitbags that adhere to the will of the Democratic Party establishment. It is the same fucking thing. David Pakman, Brian Tyler Cohen, or Ben Shapiro, or Dave Rubin, whoever, they all do the same thing. They don't properly critique the actual problem. They keep pretending like they understand what the real issue is. Well, actually, it's not even that I don't think they understand. I think they fully understand what the problem is. They just don't want you to know what the real problem is, because for them, a very comfortable livelihood is dependent upon it. So we'll finish out what this lady has to say.
I don't know, but I'm about to lose my shit because I just can't take it.
I agree. I can't take it either. And I'm not somebody at this current moment that is struggling to put food on the table, but I've been there. I've been there for a while. I was there for years. So anyone who has to deal with this on a regular basis, understand, you're not alone. This is a cataclysmic crisis that is taking over our country. And it's only going to get worse. Either we do something really significant to change our system fundamentally in a big way, or we're all going to hell. Like, that's what's coming. And that lady is sounding the alarm, because that thing went viral quick. And that's why Wall Street apes, and especially Wall Street Mav, had to come out and specifically say, no, it's just illegals. That's the problem. Not how they got here, not who's doing it, but the illegals. That's the reason. If we just got rid of them, everything will be just fine and dandy. That's what's going to solve the problem. No, it isn't. And I am not an advocate for open borders or illegal immigration. Anyone who knows me knows I'm pretty conservative on that issue. But don't even fucking pretend to not know what the problem is. We all know what it is. And either we're going to deal with it or the whole system's going belly up. Make a choice, because pretty soon a woman like that is not just going to be talking it. She's going to be walking it in the streets, potentially armed. And that's what a lot of people are going to do. So just be ready. Could get really bad. If you're enjoying this so far, please go to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. We are, as of this moment, continuing up the hill towards 50,000 subscribers. As of right now, we are at, let's see, it's taking a little while to load up here. I got to wait for our numbers to pop up, but I'll check it in a second. Right now, our numbers are, let's see, we're at, where are you? Screen's going blank. Come on, baby. Let's do this. Well, we're at 49,328. So if you are so inclined, please go again to patreon.com/revolutionary change. And again, for $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. But we also have our super chatters. We got to give a shout out to our guys. Big shout out to DH. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate you being here. Sajid Nasir, thank you so much for the $1.99. Scott Bale and Anthony Sabato Jr. are MAGA racist. Well, did you mean Scott Baio? I don't know who Scott Bale is. I know who Scott Baio is, and I know who Anthony Sabato Jr. is. Antonio Sabato Jr., excuse me. Yes, I have heard that. Again, to each their own. That's what I say. JG1982, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for the $5. Be careful. The Wu-Tang Clan has endorsed Zohran. They're deep on Staten Island. Oh, yeah. Now, listen. Old Dirty B, he definitely has his back. No two ways about it. So, it's like I said, Zohran's doing a good job. Pretty solid job. Sajid Nasir with the $9.99. Thank you so much. Peter, the thickest stain that we should have are these little scam artists that come on social media with their scam business ideas, which is really suddenly, of course, most of them are new money trash. Hey, look, it's kind of like those that got in on Bitcoin when it was trading at $100. Now it's trading over 100,000. Who can afford that? A very select few portion of the population is capable of doing it. Is it possible that it could become this sort of rocket ship and go all the way to, I don't know, $1 million, as they say, per coin? But how are you trading it is the question. You're still trading it in American dollars. So this idea that you're fully off the grid, that's not true. The only currency that is technically not in American dollars, if you want to trade it, is gold. That's a solid asset, like real estate, that you could trade. That's real. Bitcoin, it's a blockchain. It's a theory in a lot of ways. That's just my feeling. Mark J with the $2. Military-industrial complex is destroying America. Yes, very much so, and it's only getting worse. Sajid Nasir with the $1.99. America first, conservatives will start single payer. I got to tell you, man, I think you might be right about that. There are a lot of people who are finally understanding that this is not a question of trusting the government. It's a question of, does the government work for us or against us? If we had single payer healthcare, the government would be working for us because they would be funding our healthcare. Right now, they fund healthcare for mega corporations. Big private insurance, big pharma, that's who's benefiting from this broken system, not us. But if we had single payer, we certainly would be. That's the difference. That's the change that we seek. So yes, I do think that America First conservatives are moving in that direction. And the more we talk about it, the more consistent I think it's becoming that people realize that the future, without question, is single-payer healthcare. JG 1982 with the $5. Thank you again, as always. Sell your eggs. Maybe someone can afford your child. It's got to this point. Hey, the level of desperation is so bad that you've got people taking out credit on fast food. Like, I don't know how much further we have to sink before people realize, yeah, this system doesn't work. And there's still too many people out there that are selling this idea of you're just not working hard enough, that's the real problem. If you just worked a little bit harder, that's actually going to solve the crisis. No, it isn't. That's not the problem at all. They say in socialism that eventually you run out of other people's money. Well, guess what? In capitalism, if it's not blended with socialism, eventually you run out of people to exploit. That's what's happening. There are not enough people to exploit. They're trying to find a new pathway, but they can't do it. And that's the real crisis here. So I just want to do a quick check, guys, to make sure that our good friend Osiris is on his way. Osiris. Also, we are, huge shout out to friend of the show and a personal friend, Katie Halper, who has connected us with Anthony Aguilar. We are going to get him scheduled very, very soon. Rachel, I will be in touch with you on that, so just be on the lookout. Let's see. So, yeah, it is now 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Mountain Time. So hopefully our good friend Osiris is going to be with us any minute. We got, obviously, several more stories to talk about this evening. Of course, we are going to talk about at length. As I've been saying for a while, I've wanted to get my good friend on here to talk about Nick Fuentes because, he's obviously been a big proponent of his for a while. Like I said, if we're going to talk about Nick, we have to have a very honest conversation about him and what he actually represents, good and bad. This can't just be all good. I have to keep things honest. There are things that he talks about. But I got to tell you, it is very important that if we're going to have this conversation about Fuentes, that we have it with somebody who's actually been following him for a long time, that actually knows his shtick pretty well. We've got multiple angles that we're going to play here. But you know him from previous engagements on our channel. He has always been an awesome commentator, but also a good friend and somebody who I appreciate very much. Coming on this evening, Osiris, always a pleasure. Welcome back to Revolutionary Change.
What is good?
There we go.
What is good, Peter? How you feeling,
Tell
man?
me, man, you know, the first time I decide to do a clip on Fuentes, it rolls 30,000 views right out of the chute. So
Let's
it's like,
go.
you know, like people really want to talk about him. I mean, listen, I don't mind talking about him, but I'm just very honest about who he is and what he's about. Now, I think that there are a number of different places to go here, but I think the place that I want to start that I think you could probably speak to is when it came to January 6th, and everybody wants to talk about what a big, incredible day that was. I have been saying for the longest time, when anybody asks me, what's my opinion of Nick Fuentes? He is the whisperer for a substantial portion of the downtrodden men in this society today that feel that they've been forgotten. And he is especially the future voice for these young men who initially had turned to Trump, realizing that Trump is not the person that they thought he was, but believe that Nick Fuentes is. I'm curious if you think that there's a lot of truth to that.
Absolutely. You've been on point. I mean, you cover stuff and you're authentic and honest. You're on point. You've never been off point on your assessment with Nick. I can provide some more perspective, but I think he is the evolution of Donald Trump. It's the same energy. Isn't that the same thing everybody was saying about Trump? And what's happening is there's many reasons why he's blowing up now. And one of the major reasons is because Donald Trump has been proven to be a phony. Donald Trump got into office to drain the swamp. Why am I watching videos of his director of the FBI talking about arresting the guy who threw a ham sandwich at a cop? What happened? Where are we going? So that void, everyone sees it, and there's a void that needs to be filled, and it's Nick Fuentes.
I got to tell you, man, I have no problem with them arresting the guy who threw the sandwich. You arrest him for a goddamn misdemeanor. He threw you threw a sandwich at a cop. You arrest him, he pays a fine, and that's the end of it. They're talking about charging him with a felony. Like, are you like, if you can't see that we are headed for a police state dystopia, I don't know what you're looking at. And I still believe that so much of this is linked to the fact that eventually the Epstein files are going to drop. Someone's got them. They're going to release them, whether it's anonymous, who I would actually expect to be the type of person to do it. And then again, everyone forgets, just because you did what you did to Julian Assange doesn't mean that there isn't somebody else out there who has this information and isn't going to use it when the time is right. Who's to say that a person doesn't have the Epstein files and is going to release them 2 weeks prior to the midterm elections and blow up the GOP and blow up Trump's second half of his second term, and perhaps, float potential balance of power to the other party, even though I hate both parties equally. But that doesn't mean that that's not something that won't happen. They're not thinking ahead. But somebody like Nick Fuentes, he's thinking ahead. He realizes, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene realizes, where the trends in this country are going. They caught on to what Thomas Massey was doing, and they're like, yeah, this is the future. We have to go with it. I think that's a big part of it.
Oh, it is a huge part. And a lot of that self-inflicted. And really, I mean, I know the right seems to be more into the Epstein files and not to break it up in right and left, but I don't think there was really even a big push on it, to be honest with you, until Trump made it a big push. He did everything. He was all in. He was at the poker table coming into this election, and they got a little bit too kind of confident, saying that basically Kash Patel was talking about it. Trump tried to say he would do some stuff on the MLK files, the Epstein files, and now he tried to play it off. He probably thought that it would work when he had Libs of TikTok and TC Drano and them, and they got the the Nothing Burger binders, and they thought that was going to be good enough, and it wasn't. So now they're in real deep trouble. I don't think they can get out of this. Right after the recess, it's going to be a topic again.
You know, dude, I honestly cannot for the life of me understand how people don't see through these fucking people. I appreciate Fuentes for as much as anything. He, of all the people he's going to bury Charlie Kirk. Like, he's going to do it. And he can't. There is only so much that you could do to ignore what's going on before people have just had enough. Yeah, there's a lot of Christian Zionist evangelicals out there in the country. But you know what? If eventually you can't put food on the table, like that pretty redhead that was out there floating that video, and then you got other MAGA adjacent accounts like Wall Street Apes and Wall Street Mavs saying, oh, if we only deported 10 million illegals. Listen, I'm not here to advocate for illegal immigration in the United States, but if you're not going to talk about the fact that we have multinational corporations that would basically have slavery if they could get away with it. The only reason they pay you the bare minimum is because they're only going to pay you what they know they can legally get away with. They don't want to pay a living wage, ever. So when a lady like that is talking about, I have to work 60 hours a week and I have to decide whether I can pay my rent or pay my other bills, why the fuck do you think that is? Because we are one nation under corporate fascism. That's where we're at. Now, that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. But at the end of the day, if you think you're going to change it, you're not changing it unless you lock arms with people like Nick Fuentes. And I hear people say, oh, he's a racist and he's a sexist and he's a bigot and all this shit. And you know what? He might be. I don't fucking care. Because he's not pulling the levers of power. If he was pulling the levers of power, then I would care. The only racist, sexist, bigot piece of shit that I care about was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, because she pulled the levers of power. And she fucking hates everybody who ain't a Jew. And everyone knows it.
Yeah, I can add a little bit of context to that for Nick. I don't think he's a racist. I don't think he qualifies as it. He might own it, just like Steve Bannon or somebody, like, you know, they'll just say, hey, call me a racist. But he's really more of a guy who's not going to ignore differences and kind of group dynamics. So if you want to call that a racist, I guess, but I don't see him, not even close, as one, as a racist. But going to the corporate stuff, Trump let us down there too. Nick Fuentes is a big mass deportation guy.
Yes.
I was even agreeing with the mass deportation of illegals. But Trump came in and did the same thing as the essential business type of thing he did under the pandemic. And he protected the hotels. He's protected agriculture. And that's not a deportation effort. That is a protecting corporate interest effort. I'm out. I'm completely out. I'm not a part of that. If you're going to do a mass deportation, stand on it on principle. Don't. And Nick Fuentes has talked about that.
Well, the problem that we have, if you're going to do any type of mass deportation, as we are seeing, a lot of the people that are getting deported are people that are speaking out against this administration. They're not even necessarily illegal. They are here legally, and they do not like what is happening here. And that, to me, is, again, another example of the dystopia that we are dealing with. Now, I still believe that this is kind of the same thing when it comes to tuition-free public college and trade schools. It's the same thing that we are dealing with when people complain, rightfully so, about student debt and the shit that's coming down the pike with that right now. Boy, did the Biden administration set that up perfectly for Trump and for them to just kind of, again, it's just tug of war, push it back, say who this fault is, that fault. Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Biden. Thanks, Trump. Thanks, Bush, all that shit. But at the end of the day, what I'm seeing, as I think you're probably seeing as well, is that the identification of the problem is there. The solution is always the wrong one. And so if you have unlimited amounts of student debt, what the hell is the point of canceling student debt if you're not going to have tuition-free public college and trade schools? There is no point, because the problem's going to come back again in 10 years anyway. Same shit. So I'm tired of people acting stupid, just like I'm tired of paid accounts, whether by Musk or by Trump or whoever the fuck is paying Wall Street Apes, Wall Street Mav, DC Drano, Gunther Eagleman. That guy needs to get his fucking teeth knocked out already. I'm so fucking talk about little dick energy that motherfucker gives off. My God in heaven. But if you're going to say that this is a problem, that the rent problem in the United States is a crisis of epic proportions, you're right. It is a crisis of epic proportions. But if you're not going to critique capitalism and the multinational corporations that have ruined it for everybody, then fuck you and the horse you rode in on, because the only reason you're not saying it is because you're getting paid not to say it.
Yeah, they're being exposed right now. I mean, these guys you rattled off. These are guys I used to follow and kind of think that they had some knowledge or anything, something like that. They're totally empty right now, and their posts are just completely off base. And yeah, but Wall Street Apes is an interesting one because they'll post those videos that kind of hit home. But I think you're right. It's like the solution part. They typically post the videos in a neutral fashion, typically, I think.
Yeah.
And then when you see the responses under there from Wall Street Ape and all that, it's a little bit off. And I think they are funded indirectly by Elon Musk. Elon Musk he's monetized the platform on X, and he's been able to manipulate it where most of the money is going to the select few people that he wants it to go to.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think that the thing that people really don't understand about nationalism is when the perception becomes we as citizens mean less than those in, let's say, other countries, for example, it's not hard to see people becoming nationalistic and wanting to take their country back, if you will. I think that the biggest issue that a lot of people tend to have, especially of certain cultures, is the assimilation factor that has always been at the heart of where I think a lot of the anger and the vitriol and the bigotry ends up coming from. It's not because they don't necessarily like somebody who's a different skin color, although that's definitely real. That's without question. But we cannot discount the fact that we live in a country where the average level of education is sixth grade. That's the average level of education in the United States, sixth grade. So imagine the level of ignorance that a lot of people have. The fact that they grow up in communities, not necessarily too much in a state like Colorado, but states like Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, the deep South where I am, North Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. The fear of the unknown has always been the biggest concern. People that they don't understand will always cause this great deal of backlash, this great deal of fear. And that is where I think somebody like Nick is really channeling that type of energy. People are recognizing their own fears through his commentary. He's crystallizing it in a way to make them see things that they otherwise have been feeling, but he's trying to tell you that it's not exactly what you think it is. On the one hand, he will say some really good stuff. And then on the other hand, he will say things that I think are deeply disturbing. Now, two people in particular that we're going to start talking about here are two people that have continued on with the Daily Wire, with Ben Shapiro, who didn't leave like Candace Owens left. And that, of course, are the two biggest accounts that they have outside of Ben Shapiro. That's Mr. Walsh and Mr. Knowles. And they have very sizable platforms. They have a very big reach. And as you have probably observed, as I have, those two have tried to tap dance on the Israel issue so hard for the past several months that it's not a surprise that it's going in the direction that it's going in right now. So here's what Fuentes had to say regarding both Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles.
Knowles for years. He preaches Catholicism, but I never pursued the Catholic Church until I found your show. I wonder why? God bless you. Love you, brother.
Thank you for the big super chat. Yeah, I mean, the thing is about Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh is they are just slaves. They are just slaves to Israel. And it's pathetic. I mean, they have kids. How are they going to explain to their kids that they're slaves to Israel? They're all doing this shtick about, oh, I'm a dad. I'm a family man. I have kids. I'm mature. Yeah, but you are owned by Ben Shapiro. You can't talk about Israel because you work for Ben Shapiro. What does that say about you? You are a Catholic working for a Jew who hates you.
He was almost there, but then he decided to make it, he's working for the Jew, and that's the problem. And I have said for the longest time, if we do not distinguish between Zionists and Jews, the level of anti-Semitism is going to hit a fever pitch in this country because of people like Ayel Yacobi and Hillel Fuld and all of these who I consider to be you want to talk about the first people that I would deport? I'd deport those pieces of shit into the Middle East. Well, actually, no, I don't even give a fuck where they would go. Just get the hell out of this country. because they're as anti-American. No one is more anti-American than these motherfuckers that celebrate Israel 24/7. They are the worst of the worst, and they all hide behind their fucking religion of the worst kind. Peter Saddington is coming on the podcast on Monday from Matt Kim's podcast. And we're going to talk about this insider bullshit that people don't know about when it comes to bank loans that people of a certain background are able to get away with. But people like Jen Perlman, there's not enough of them speaking up about this shit. The distinction between the two is key. And if you allow Fuentes to just blanket it, like, I don't give a fuck what Dan Bilzerian has to say. He is the biggest joke of them all. He's not a real commentator. He's a fucking Nepo baby who said a few correct things. Nick Fuentes, he is not good. He is a great orator. He is great at what he does. And that's why people are drawn to him. And I know everyone has these opinions, if you will, about, well, he's really a little Hitler and all this shit. Here's what I know. I know that people listen to what he has to say. And if they're going to listen to him, more and more people are going to continue to listen to him. So now we have to ask ourselves, what does that future look like? I'm not sure yet. So he's right, but he's not completely right either. Your thoughts?
I will say this: I don't like doing the qualifications, but I think it's important for people who don't really follow Nick. It's not all Jews. It is not. When he says that, he is not talking about all Jews, and we won't get into. There's a whole separate question talking about Jews in general, but that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, when I'm darker than Wesley Snipes probably, and if you look at my Twitter and you search the word blacks, you would probably think I was in a Ku Klux Klan or something like that.
Did you ever see the movie Passenger 57?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just remember, always bet on black.
Black, yes.
Favorite line from that movie. Yep.
So it doesn't matter if I'm viewed as black or whatever that is. The group dynamic is the group dynamic. And that's my interpretation of what he's saying there. So if you're just jumping into Nick, because when I looked at Nick and I heard about him, I thought he was like the most far right like you would ever find in this world. He's a moderate, believe it or not. He's a moderate that will say things that some people, off-color jokes and stuff. But on these topics, he is a moderate. And just for the Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles thing, again, I don't want to speak for Nick. This is my interpretation, is that Nick actually has a lot of respect for Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh. I do. On the right, there's a lot of people on whatever that is. On the right, I think there are a lot of people who are kind of disappointed because Matt Walsh, he's not a debate bro live kind of guy, but Matt Walsh is one of the best writers of our generation. When he puts pen to pad, he is like Jay-Z for like op-eds. He is unbelievable as a writer. And I think the frustration is you are capped. You're talking about the transgender issue when we've got the U.S. bombing Iran, and you can't really fully get into the topic. So I think I think Nick's almost trying to guilt them into leaving. And I think at some point, Matt has gotten so big, Daily Wire would be, I don't know where they would be without him at this point. They lost Candace, they lost Brett Cooper. I think he's going to have to leave.
I would agree. And I also think, look, there are things that I can, like everybody, Michael Knowles was nice enough to platform Jen when she was running for Congress, even though they had disagreements, but they were at least willing to have a conversation. That, to me, I think was a very necessary evil, even if you don't agree on key issues. But if you can find that pathway on this issue, that's what's key. I know what Nick is up. I know what he's up to. Like, I totally see what he's doing. He wants to take down Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, who are, especially in terms of the millennial and Gen Z generations, they are the two biggest gatekeepers in conservative media today that are holding back this true America First libertarian movement that is going to break away from what has been this imperial hegemon that we have been living through for the longest time. And I do see what he's trying to do. But that doesn't mean that I can go along with everything that he's saying. And I don't think people should. And I think if he says something that's wrong, people need to critique him on it. There is no reason not to push him. I know he has a big ego, but you know what? We on this channel have an obligation to say what he is saying correctly, but also what he's not saying correctly. To just blindly go along is the biggest mistake, and we know other channels are going to do it because they're trying to catch the fucking heat wave that he's providing for them right now. But I ain't doing it, and neither is Jen. Got to keep it 100. Let's hear what else he has to say.
They're either completely ignorant or they're complicit, which makes them traitors and cowards. But it's disgusting. And I say this like, look, I wish they would just join the winning team. Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, what's going on, man? What is going on? You call yourselves Catholics? What would Charles Martel have to say? What would the kings and queens of Europe have to say? It's unbelievable. The Jews collaborated with our enemies, with the Muslims, with the communists, with you name it.
The anti-Muslim bigotry is so real. It's so big. They really can't hide it. Now, I don't see Fuentes as the type of person that's going to make it his mission in life to go after them the way that Charlie Kirk has. But my God, dude, I guarantee you not a single one of them has ever stepped into a mosque once in their life. Not once. No chance.
Well, let me say, I think what this is here, what's happening in the world is a religious battle. And I think, and I will agree with Nick on this. This is where I will take it, is that there needs to be a better balance in power between faiths. Right now, when you look at America, we are dominated by Zionist, evangelical Christians, and Jews. Zionists through and through. There might be, a handful that aren't? Yeah. 5, maybe 6, maybe at the most. I don't even know what the number is right now. And I think the push right now is there has to be a better balance than that. And the Christians who are Zionists, I don't even count them as Christians. So in my opinion, there's no Christian power, no Catholic power. And I think that's why he's calling it out in that way.
Well, you're not going to get much of an argument from me since my father is Irish Catholic. So I have always leaned into the fact that there's a lot of problems with the Catholic Church, but considering who their last 2 popes are, they have at least been moving in the direction of a more honest and just world. There has never been any comparison, in my opinion, to Catholicism and evangelical Protestantism. There is no comparison. If you were brought up in an evangelical church, I truly feel sorry for you. And we've had Casey Malone on. If you haven't checked her out, she's been on a couple of times. She has a great channel. She was raised in an evangelical upbringing in Oklahoma. And she's talked constantly about what that was like, having to listen to the likes of John Hagee and Joel Osteen and Pat Robertson, and then talk about Israel and the importance of Israel. And all the time you're realizing, now, this is just about money and power. This isn't about anything else. You've been duped, and so that's your problem. But as I've said, if you continue to allow the Zion Nazis to control the narrative, you're going to allow the elements of it's just the Jews to seep into the consciousness of people. And that's why you're seeing a lot of them spew that shit. Now, I don't think Fuentes is the worst of them, but he's definitely leaning on it. Not fully. But I know, I can see what he's doing, and it's not good. I don't like it. And that's why it has to be critiqued. Because again, are there issues in the Muslim faith? Of course there is. There's a difference between Sunni Muslims and Shia Muslims. But what is the overwhelming majority of Muslims in the world, and especially in the United States? They're Sunni. They're not Shia. They think everybody's, turning into a terrorist, and that's fucking nuts. And they talk about it in the worst kind of way. I've been around. I've spent time in Ilhan Omar's presence multiple times. The way these people get treated, I don't. You want to talk about somebody who gets death threats on a regular basis? How the hell she puts up with it, I don't know. But to her credit, and you spew this type of stuff, and the only honest operators out there are the ones who get drowned out. The loud ones, the ones who really need the platform, they're not getting it, and that's what I hate. So when Nick says that, we hate Muslims, it's like, fuck that shit. Somebody has to push back on him and tell him that's not the answer. If you're going to do it honestly. There's a difference between Shia Muslims and Sunni Muslims, and there's a difference between Zionists and Jews. Make the distinction. If you want to bring in as many people as humanly possible and end this control that Israel has over our country, that's the only way it's going to happen. You have to distinguish them. Make people pick a side. That's how it's done.
The liberals and revolutionaries, and they try to fashion themselves as crusaders, Charles Martel would spit on you. How do you justify working for Ben Shapiro in 2025? Your boss, your colleague, is the arch neocon of America. He is synonymous with Israel first, and you work at his company, and you're a Catholic? You're America first? You know, Matt Walsh has the gall to say virtue. He says, are you going to do the right thing when it's difficult? Don't talk to me about doing the right thing. Never use the word courage with me, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles. Do not use, you're not allowed to use that word. You are a coward. You're a coward and a traitor. You work for Ben Shapiro. You might as well work for Mark Levin. You might as well work for Laura Loomer. You might as well work for Netanyahu. You practically do. And they downplay the Israel issue. It's all, for them, it's all just white grievance politics. It's slop. I watch Matt Walsh's show and it makes me fucking furious. This doofus rolls up his sleeves with his flannel and his beard and says, but you're not allowed to say that. That's racist. White people are treated bad. White people, black people suck. How are more Somalis going to make America better? And it's just fucking slop. It is slop for stupid white people to eat up. Our country is occupied. Why are we bringing in Somalians? That's a good question. Why are we bringing in millions of immigrants from foreign countries? That's a good question. You want to know why? Because 100 years ago, a Jewish playwright said, we're a melting pot. Because for 100 years, we have been propagandized by a minority that does not see themselves as European, that is not Christian, that has told us what our values are, which is that we are a melting pot, we are diverse, we are pluralistic and tolerant.
I got a lot to say, so I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, let me just go back on a little bit what you said there. First, to make sure that we're clear, Nick Fuentes does not hate anybody. He is a very devout Christian Catholic, and he does not promote violence. I would never associate with anybody who promotes hate or violence. And I didn't know that until I started listening to him, and he kind of explained it out. So I want everybody to give him a chance. Don't assume that that is where he's coming from. He will challenge other religions. But the future, I just have to be honest. Let me take it here and I'll give it back to you. The future is going to be anti-Semitic, and they're not helping it. I mean, if Donald Trump...
Jen says the same thing.
It is. I mean, it is, because you see Donald Trump wins, and then the first thing that RFKJ does, literally the first thing he does is says, basically, from the health department, that anti-Semitism is a health concern. And I'm like, what is going on right now? Literally every single move is something that has to do with Israel. And the core is, I don't know if you saw, Destiny's son is a Groyper, is a Nick Fuentes fan. And he's a younger, I don't know how old he is, he's a young kid. That's how a lot of them are. But what they're doing is they're seeing all this stuff and nobody has good answers for it. And they have no problem. They don't watch Fox. They don't watch Daily Wire. So they don't have any problem going to Nick.
Yeah, and I think it's also important, and I see how some of our chat's reacting. I want people to understand something. This is kind of like the same response that I try to explain when it comes to the Zionist population of the United States. You know, a lot of people associate it as being a Jewish thing, but the fact of the matter is Christian Zionists outnumber Jewish Zionists like, I don't know, 10-1 in the United States. So the perception is one thing, but it is important that we hear how other people are thinking. You know, a lot of this language, this insulary language that Nick is using, is the type of stuff that goes on in the chat rooms on Reddit and some of those like deeper, you know, I forget the
4chan. Yeah.
Yeah, 4chan, AMA, so things like that.
Mhm.
Where do you remember? Do you remember the McDonald's advertisement, Moon Man, the Mac at Night? Do you remember that thing?
No.
Okay, so I went into the rabbit hole
Mm.
not too long ago where Moon Man apparently was constructed into this extremely racist version of Doom. Like they redid the characters. Like, dude, I'm not kidding. Like, as a black guy, you got to see it. It's so fucking insane. But the type of people that do that type of stuff, as I've been saying for the longest time about Fuentes and who he channels people that hate themselves and hate this world. I have mentioned this on the podcast before. I have gone into places, as one I will never forget. When I first got into commercial real estate, I went to this multifamily property in Pompano Beach, Florida, and I walk into this guy's apartment, and it's maybe 400 square feet. It looks like a fucking dump. And what is he doing? He's standing by his computer in the middle of the day, so clearly he don't have a job, so he's not out there doing work, or if he is, he's working overnight. And what's he doing? He's watching Tim Pool. That's what he's doing. And to me, that speaks a lot to millions of people out there in this country that are angry, that are frustrated, and they feel that guys like Fuentes are speaking to them in a way that other people don't. There is this hatred that a lot of men have towards women because they can't get dates, they can't get laid. There's a lot of issues there. And Fuentes has a very nasty anti-woman streak, and they listen to it and they embrace it because they're like, well, you know what? Women don't like me and women hate me. So you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right about this. And so when he starts going off in this direction, and don't worry, guys, we actually have a good clip of Fuentes coming up when he talks about Peter Thiel. We'll get to that in a minute. But there is no question that whether it's because this is personal animosity that this guy is feeling and he's projecting it into the world and other people are agreeing with him, there is sort of this blanket association of everybody that, in my opinion, is dangerous. And when he goes there, he's only in the short run, it's going to work. In the long run, it's going to be dangerous. And that's why we have to talk about this. That's not to say that it can't change, but never forget that he was one of the leaders of getting people to the Capitol on January 6th. I don't think people truly understand how many people he got to go to the Capitol. Like, he is extremely influential. Like, he is a real leader.
Oh, yeah.
And not necessarily in a good way. I'm just calling a spade a spade. That's what it's about. Like, he is a very influential individual. And I always wonder if people that have that type of power truly understand that with it comes, as cliche as it may be to say, a lot of responsibility. And I don't know if he fully has that because he's still a relatively young guy. And I think he's very immature in a lot of ways as well. My thoughts.
Well, I just want to say happy birthday coming up. I think Monday is his birthday. He's coming off. He's going to take the day off. But here's what I think people are seeing, though. Let me challenge you here from this standpoint. He is basically, in the purest sense, not in a negative sense, I view him as a white nationalist, a white Christian nationalist.
I agree.
And America views him, even the right, views him as negative. Israel is literally a Jewish ethno-state, a country that is designed literally to protect Jews. So, and they're celebrated here. So people are coming up, young men. This is a movement that is really driven by young white Christian men are seeing this and saying, wait a second, I never hated anybody. All I said is this country was started by white Christian men. They don't even say there can't be anybody else here. They don't say kick out the blacks or anything like that. They're peaceful. And they say, wait a second, I'm treated like I'm a villain in my own country, and I'm forced to support an ethno-state 7,000, 10,000 miles away. What do you say? What do you think about that angle on it?
Well, I think it's an absolutely correct angle because at the end of the day, what I said about Fuentes, and I still maintain it, I do think he's bigoted. In fact, I think he's probably extremely bigoted, but ultimately he is not pulling the levers of power. He is asking for us to take our country back and allow us to make that decision. Now, of course, he sees it through a white dominance lens, which I don't agree with, but can we get to a point where we actually can take our government back, where we are not having this what you would call proxy nation in the Middle East decide our fate, especially when it comes to foreign policy? How many different conflicts, since we all know they were involved in JFK's assassination, have we been privy to ever since then? Everything is related to this little country, which is just an extension of us in so many ways. And the fact that he is putting it out there, kudos, but that doesn't mean that he is above reproach. And that is the danger for the Groypers and anybody who supports him. We got to keep this 100, because if he's right on one, it doesn't mean he's right on the other. And that's where the push has to happen, because if we're going to lock arms and end Israel's reign over our country, there has to be an understanding about these issues very, very clearly, as far as I'm concerned.
That's why. But they don't want to talk about that. They strategically avoid that. They want to play to white grievance politics. And look, don't get me wrong, like, they're right in what they say, but it's a half truth. I saw Matt Walsh, this doofus, he's talking about Somalian culture. He said, we're bringing Somalians here. He says, shouldn't we know something about their culture? What is Somalian culture? Culture. We don't need to look at Somalian culture to say we don't fucking want them here. Somalian culture, they're not even good racists. People like Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles are filling up the trough with slop for racists, and they're not even good racists. I'm the best racist of all of them. I'm the number one racist on the planet. And
I mean, I didn't say it. He said it.
Peter, he's joking, man. He's joking. He's joking. He's not.
I think he's. Well, we'll continue. How about he's half joking? Can we say he's half joking?
No, I agree completely. Joking. No, I agree completely. He's half joking.
I could say with authority, you are a terrible racist. It's about Somalian culture? Dude, it's because they're from fucking Africa. Well, their culture. We need to make an argument about Somalian culture to say they shouldn't set up an enclave in America? He uses words like assimilation. Assimilation? Their politicians are advocating on behalf of Somalia. We don't want them here. Enough said. Matt Walsh says, well, with their culture's inferior. Just say you don't want a bunch of Africans here. Just say.
But wait, I don't see.
He's calling them out for what it is, and they're addressing the fact that Ilhan has this Somalian gentleman who's running for mayor, I believe, of I think it's Minnesota.
Minneapolis, right? Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, does anybody ever want to talk about what our country did to Somalia? How we have destroyed that country? Because we have, think about how many countries in Africa we have destroyed for their mineral resources. Have you seen?
Still are, yeah.
Have you seen what Sierra Leone looks like today? Where do you think all the people? I don't know if you guys know this in the audience, but you want to know where your electronics go when you don't use them anymore and there's no use for them? It's all being dumped into Sierra Leone. That's what the country's becoming. It is becoming the biggest dump on the planet. And why are they doing that? Because it's one of the poorest black countries on the planet. And what the fuck are they going to do about it? And you want to talk about a corrupt government? Again, we did this to them. So when they talk about, well, why is it that we don't want to have Somalians in the United States? Just like Laura fuckhead Loomer comes out and is like, why do we want to take Gazans into the United States? The one thing I will say, and this is where we will get to where I really do agree with Nick, is that he is very anti-imperialist. And to me, that's his greatest strength, and that's his greatest gift. If you are going to be anything right now, being anti-imperialist is the fastest way we end Israel's stranglehold and the fastest way we could take our country back, because one way or the other, BRICS is taking over. The unification of these major countries worldwide is going to happen whether we like it or not. If we do not figure out how to catch up to China technologically, especially with our infrastructure, especially with high-speed rail, among other things, we're all fucked in the worst way. So that's why I say we can have these banters about how racist somebody like Nick Fuentes is, and I do believe he's a racist, but that's my opinion. At the end of the day, do I think he's right about a number of these issues? Yes. And he is calling out both Knowles and Walsh for their hypocrisy because they are hypocrites. There's no two ways about it. So is what it is. We'll finish it up.
Say less, dipshit. Just say less, tough guy, racist. Say less. Just say we don't. And, you know, it's like that's valid, but they don't want to say that. They don't want to use these racial terms. They want to pander to racial sensibilities. They don't want to use racial terms. They're just running an edgier version of Ben Shapiro. It has everything to do with culture, nothing to do with race, and everything to do with culture. And pandering to this white grievance politics without actually getting to the crux of it, which is that we are an occupied nation. So the whole thing is just pathetic. It's like a white minstrel show. It's just white wigger identity politics. Chest beating, I don't want Somalians in my kids' schools because their culture's bad. You fucking pussy. Just say what you mean.
But you know who would agree with him on a lot of that stuff? I went to school and I quickly, though I was 18, and I never really was around a lot of Africans, people who were, you know, second generation or first generation immigrants, Africans. And my parents are Jamaican. So I did notice that there is a difference between just the cultures here. Like American blacks are way different than Jamaican blacks.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think a lot of them would agree with what Nick's saying right there. A lot of the blacks from definitely, I knew people from Ghana and different places, and even the few Jamaicans, that they would agree with Nick's assessment there.
I think a lot of times people want to protect their culture. I think that that's a big part of it. I also think that there is, as I've always said, the biggest thing about racism in the United States is always fear of the unknown. I also think when you grow up in certain situations, as I said, I think a lot of it, in especially with a lot of men, especially nowadays, a lot of sexual repression, I think, plays a big role. And I'm not just talking about whether or not somebody is a closeted homosexual, which maybe Nick Fuentes is, maybe he's not, but I don't really care. What I do care about is that you have a lot of sexually frustrated men, a lot of men who can't get dates, a lot of men who don't have economic prospects that are going to allow them to meet a woman that they feel that they can, you know, have a life with. And that is a very scary place to be. Because when you think about the worst aspects of Muslim culture, and you think about those that practice jihad, one of the more common elements of those types of men are ones of immense sexual repression. That does play a significant role. And I think that that will play a more significant role at home if we don't start dealing with this problem sooner rather than later. And I always encourage men, especially, you know, ones who may be down in the dumps, just exercise and eat right. And you would be amazed at how much your own personal confidence will change dramatically, where you'll just feel better about the world in general than you would if you're not doing that. There is no one-size-fits-all solution to the problem. But what I will say about Fuentes is I tell everybody in the audience, I tell everybody who's been paying attention since we've been running this channel, do not underestimate how much economic anxiety will drive people not only insane, but to the point in which they want to hurt people. That's a common theme. And I understand why Nick is so popular. I do. I don't have to agree with everything he says, and I sure shit don't. But I can see why he's popular. And for people to pretend that they can't see it, I don't know what you're looking at. Now, where I think that this is an appropriate transition into a much more agreeable topic for a lot of people is on the issue of the powers that be. Nick is not afraid to go for the throat on the people who truly run this country. And the person who he has a personal vendetta against, although maybe it's, like I said, I joke about it, but, you know, because he just happens to be a gay man who is the biggest hypocrite of them all. I don't think people truly realize how evil both Alex Karp and Peter Thiel really are. You know, these two men are in control of everything that George Orwell wrote about. Palantir is Big Brother. That is who they are. A novel that was written almost 100 years ago is now coming to fruition today, almost 90 years later, right at the end, or 80 years later, I should say, because 1984 was written at the end of World War II. And so much of what Orwell had talked about is now becoming a reality today. And by that measurement, you would have to be blind to ignore this reality that Peter Thiel, first of all, Jen and I have both debated. Peter Thiel is a lizard person. He's not even human. He's like Wasserman Schultz. It's like he's like ready to jump out of that skin. Like you could see it. Like he can't stay in it. He's gonna like, if we were ever gonna see somebody jump out of their skin,
it would be him.
He's the first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Alex Karp.
Oh, he's ooh.
And he's even worse because he's the smart one.
Yeah.
Like he is.
Yep. He's the brains.
He's like an X-Men villain. Like he's. I know that Bezos looks and thinks that he's Lex Luthor. That's who Alex Karp is. He's the real Lex Luthor. He's really that criminal mastermind of the worst kind who, if you remember the interview, because they've both shared the same sentiment, they would wipe out humanity if they could get away with it. Like this is Skynet from Terminator come to life. Peter Thiel in that interview a couple of months ago. Are you concerned about what you would consider to be the survival of humanity? Does that bother you? Well, you have to, excuse me, you got to think about this. The second he thinks about it, I'm thinking,
even the interviewer, the interviewer even asked him, like, are you hesitating? Didn't he say something like that?
Well, here's what Nick had to say about Peter Thiel.
This is just, you're telling me his biography. This is not a compelling case at all. This guy's not on our side. I'll give you a million counter arguments. He's funding Yoram Hazony. Boom, done. End of story. He's in bed with Bari Weiss and Mark Andreessen. Boom, done. End of story. He defers to Israel on the use of facial recognition and lavender at Palantir, which is run by Alex Karp. Boom, done. End of story. He's funding Sovereign House and Curtis Yarvin and Passage Press. They're all Jewish nationalists. End of story. You're wrong. Sorry, you're wrong. You are wrong. I appreciate the big super chats, but this insinuation I'm shooting myself in the foot, you have yet to make one good argument, a single good argument, one piece of evidence. You have nothing. I have a blind spot. Everything you told me, I know. Everything you just told me, I know, I have known for years. Believe me, it is not a blind spot. I know everything you just said. Fully aware. Not shooting myself in the foot. And I know things you don't, actually. I know things I'm not even at liberty to say here. So just fucking stop. And don't tell me to retweet you again. Thank you for the big super chat. But for...
That's a problem for Nick. Woo. That put you in the spotlight.
Yeah. Yeah, Thiel is... And that's also the thing that I really wish people would understand. The real danger. And this was always the thing about what happened post 9/11 with the Patriot Act. You know, that bill was on the table for a long time, and they were trying to figure out a way to get it, which is why just about everybody, I would think, with an open mind at this point is convinced that 9/11 was an inside job. And the intention was always to bring it to this point. That's how an organization, a dystopian organization like Palantir, I mean, we're going to be hearing the word Palantir forever. Again, it's like it's so out of like the worst type of sci-fi movie. And they are the two worst sci-fi villains. But Peter Thiel is the billionaire. He's the one that is part of the PayPal mafia that decided to go in a much darker place than Elon ever decided to go. I've got my problems with Elon. Don't kid yourself. But Peter Thiel is a very evil fucking guy. And he has J.D. Vance waiting in the wings, who we all know right now, if the next presidential election was held, he's going to win. Because we all know the Democrats are just pretty much dead right now and probably will be at the rate that they're going. I just look at it as this is a guy who truly does not care if he wipes out humanity on Earth. It does not even face him. Not even close. If he had an opportunity to just flick the switch, yeah, I think he is that much of an Armageddon type figure, if there ever was. He's probably the biggest one right now, in my opinion.
I think he's the head honcho of it all. I think he might be more powerful than Elon Musk, Peter Thiel. And I think that's what the theory is, that, there was a big beef with Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, and Nick just basically discredited Tucker, basically really took him out from the standpoint of not popularity, but credibility. And I think the real concern that they have is they want to protect Peter Thiel. Now, I can't explain why Nick is blowing up on Rumble and Peter Thiel has some investment there. He doesn't have total control. But I think the theory is that Peter Thiel wants Nick out of the picture because Nick is one of the only people with prominence that is going after J.D. Vance. You know the J.D. Vance fat face memes that went viral?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Did people get in trouble or some shit because they were passing that around?
Yeah, there was one guy I saw that got in trouble, but they said it was some other thing too with it. But the reason I brought it up is, to my knowledge, the Groypers started that. That, to me, that they were the first I saw that did it for the Groyper War 2. That was about a year ago. They were the ones that were making fun of J.D. Vance with the fat face memes. The other memesters were smart to try and take it and make it a joke. But my point is, there's a lot. Nick has real, if you don't know, Nick has real following. Don't listen to anybody telling you these are bots. That is absolutely incorrect from my experience. Completely false. So I'm in chats.
And I will tell you that the critiques that I've been getting from people that support Nick, it's actually very substantive. Whereas when I went after Charlie Kirk, the only people coming there to bitch to me were basically incel men saying that women didn't have the right to control their own bodies. That was basically it. I thought that was so telling. But it also goes to show you, whether you agree with them politically or not, who's actually wanting people to think versus those that they just want people to do. That, to me, is the difference. We'll continue.
Yeah.
But, you sound like a fucking grifter, honestly. I appreciate the super chat, but no, dude, JD Vance is not our friend. Peter Thiel is not our friend. That is not a blind spot. You have no idea what you're talking about. These Claremontsters, Straussians, Founders Fund, the problem is people like you. You think that you are using them. They are using you. People like you, Andrew Isker, all these other you are a useful idiot for Jewish nationalists who are infinitely more intelligent than you. And honestly, you deserve it. He invested in next generation politicians. And like who? Like who? Joe Kent, who attacked me for not being pro-Israel? Like who? Patrick Witt, who fucking lost as insurance commissioner? Like who? Gibbs? Nice guy, but he lost? Wouldn't even take a meeting with me? Very few of those people won. Blake Masters lost. That guy sucks. Vance won, and he's a fat piece of shit. So who?
Let me tell you, you start using that language, and that's how, that's how Thiel's going to come for you, because Vance is his guy. And these guys have big plans, and they know right now that, as crazy as this is for me to say, as bad as the Republicans are doing, the Democrats are doing that much worse. The only reason they're doing the things that they're doing is because they have no pushback. It's a one-party duopoly. There is no shift, which is why they're doing the things that they're doing. And by that measure, you have this really dangerous sort of monopolistic end of times type of scenario that we're kind of stuck in right now, but we're trying to shift course. And I do think from this perspective, Fuentes is correct. And he's actually calling out the right people, which I would hope people in the chat who may not like him are recognizing that it is absolutely necessary to say what he's saying, even though what he is saying is actually kind of dangerous.
He talks about that, and he says, hey, they might try to take me out, because he has influence and says these things. So he's going at Trump. Trump came into office, and he opened up the door with all that BS from him and Elon Musk. The whole DOGE thing, the Department of Government Efficiency, it was absolute bull. So what happened is Elon Musk came into the government. It helped him out because he ran out all the regulators that were going after his companies. And I think some of that was unfair that they were going after his companies. But regardless of that, they came in, they fired all those regulators that were going after his company. And Elon Musk, for his PayPal mafia boy, and those employees were former Palantir employees, he consolidated all the data. Trump signed this executive order in March that told all the agencies to tear down their silos, and Elon Musk put it together with Doge and let Peter Thiel's Palantir come in with all these offshoots. The dude has like 50 different offshoot AI companies, from Immigration OS to Clearview to Palantir to all these different data companies, and they contracted with some of them. Some of them were already contracted with DHS. Now a private company has all that information. You don't know what they have on you, but they can search you. They can, who knows what they're searching on you. Trump with Elon brought in Palantir, and now Peter Thiel is probably one of the most powerful guys in the world.
Oh, he absolutely is. That's not even a question. We had on Shama Sawant not too long ago, and let me tell you, she's causing Mr. Smith, who she's running against for Congress in just outside of Seattle. I mean, that guy is shitting bricks running against her. And she's great. I really like Shama. She's the real deal for a true progressive leftist. And when she came on here, we talked about Peter Thiel and how how he sees her as a threat. And I want people to really understand this. When you get right down to it, there is like these so-called red blue lines, these liberal, progressive, conservative, libertarian lines, they're all going away. Because in the end, all this shit that we talk about, it doesn't mean anything when you have somebody like, in this case, Peter Thiel. He's not the only one. He just happens to be the worst of them all. But he wants to play God. Like that's what they're doing. They want to play God, and they think they can get away with it until the people rise up. That's what's going to happen. And I understand. This is, like I said, if there is an area where I actually agree almost completely with Fuentes, it's on this. And you know what? Of all the things to agree with him on, this might be the most important. The conjunction between Palantir and Israel and the tech information that they provide to them to commit genocide. I mean, I have no words.
I called them the operating system of war. That's how much power they have with the drones and everything, mapping things, the world, everything. But let me say this. I'm still libertarian in principle, but now I've realized, I think that's kind of what you were going at. You were saying libertarianism, what does it matter when one guy is collecting all the data and power and it's all consolidating to a small group of people? And correct. I agree with that. To me, it's more, what are the morals of the people in charge? I don't need libertarianism. I don't care if it's socialism. I don't care if it's communism. I don't care what it's called. What is the moral of, we would be better under a communistic, socialistic, whatever type of system if the leaders were people I value their morals than we are right now. So I've changed a little bit.
Yeah, Nick said the same thing. I could credit where it's due. He did say that. He said we're better off under socialism as long as it's an honest system, and what we have here is not an honest system. That's a big deal. God, like I said, he's been pretty spot on about this.
Who the fuck are you talking about? And yeah, he's promoting all these Christian projects. Have you noticed that none of them criticize Israel? You know, Isker's homesteading thing in Tennessee, which is being funded by those circles, those guys never criticize Israel. They're all Trump cheerleaders. You are wrong. He funds NatCon. NatCon is like a Jewish fifth column. It's run by Yoram Hazony. Peter Thiel and Vance speak there, and Hazony is a Kahanist. Peter Brimelow is not allowed there. I'm shooting myself in the foot. Peter Brimelow is not allowed at NatCon. I'm not allowed at NatCon. Hazony is trash talking me to Ethan Klein at the New York Times. Or Ezra Klein. I mean, Ezra Klein at the New York Times.
Just a little bit of You know, they all look alike type of things.
Steve Saylor and Lomez are shit-talking me at Passage Press. Peter Thiel funded. They're both Jews. Steve Saylor's a Jewish nationalist. Lomez is a Zionist. Curtis Yarvin's a Jewish nationalist. It goes on and on and on. I tried to speak at Sovereign House. They wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let me. It's Jews only. No Israel critics allowed. So, like, dude, you're just wrong on this. J.D. Vance, he said we should bomb Iran. He went to an America First think tank and said we should arm Israel and bomb Iran.
And I've been telling people the power is with the data. And that's what they're doing. They're consolidating data. Right now in the digital age, the fuel, the power is collecting data, because the more data you have, the better your AI or LLM systems work. The more data you have, you can actually predict. Peter, if I have enough data on you, I can make a prediction what you're going to do after the live is over. It might take a lot of data, but that's how powerful it is.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen the movie Minority Report, it's actually very true. It's about thought crime. It's like, well, I know you haven't committed this yet, but I'm going to arrest you anyway because I think you might do it. And if you think that's not possible, there's a reason why you have planted evidence on people. Again, there's the level of dystopia that we're heading towards is so dangerous that, like I said, we must forgive in the short term the obvious flaws of the Nick Fuenteses of the world if they're going to identify the real problem that is driving us straight into hell. That's the key. It's not ideal, but we have to have an absolute come to Jesus moment, if you want to call it that, to understand what the real problems here are. Peter Thiel is a real fucking problem in a gargantuan way that I think people truly downplay, that they shouldn't.
It just doesn't get better than this. Yoram Hazony, they're his top guys. Vance, Rubio, Hegseth, they're Yoram Hazony's top guys. You're just wrong on this. You are wrong. This is your evidence. You have fucking nothing. You gave me Peter Thiel's Wikipedia page. I've read it. I've read the Straussian moment. It's not what you think. Who else does Thiel support? Darren Beattie? Do you know that Darren Beattie was captivated by Leo Strauss? Why is he such a big fan of Heidegger? Because he thinks Heidegger's a more advanced Leo Strauss. And Darren Beattie grew up in Palau and Guam, another normal upbringing. Give me a break. It's crazy. You're just wrong on this.
You know, the fact that we have voting from Guam and voting from, like, not the Marshall Islands, but I keep forgetting there's like a few different places around the world where in the presidential primaries, I remembered this from like 2016. And I'm thinking, why is Guam voting for our president exactly? I don't understand. Like, no one ever thought to stop and ask that. Puerto Rico, even though Puerto Rico we treat like it's ours, even though it's technically not. It's like they're getting all the benefits that we get from calling them part, like a satellite country, like the U.S. Virgin Islands, even though technically that's not really part of the United States. It's the imperialism is so big, and it's going to get so much worse. And that is where somebody like Nick is right. Like I said, if I can only have one issue where I could say that I agree with Nick Fuentes, this would be it. And he's right. And to his credit, he's speaking to an audience that desperately needs to hear it. Because a lot of times they have been under this illusion for so long that, like, Trump was coming to save them. Because they're so fucking desperate. I totally was coming to save everybody. We were really going to totally get it done. But then I turned out to not be such a great hombre after all. I was a really shitty person. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest reasons that I think he got back in is because they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. They said, you know, all these legal problems you have, we'll make them go away. Here's the condition. You will annex the West Bank. You will allow us to conduct our genocide. We will build a Riviera, if you will, along the Mediterranean coastline in what was Gaza after we extract the $500 billion worth of natural gas that's under Gaza soil, which was the whole fucking point of this in the first place.
Yep.
And to those people who want to pretend that this was never the case, that there was some ulterior motive, I have been saying it forever. I will say it now until the cows come home. The only reason that anything ever happens in this country especially is for money and for power. And that's it. There is nothing else.
Miriam Adelson famously gave Trump, how much was it? I forget how much it was. It was a huge amount of money. When her husband was alive, he gave Trump money even in the first term. And they're the ones who run. I think it was over $100 million or something like that. Crazy money. And she wasn't the only huge Zionist that did that.
Well, it's this is like I said, like the system has to break itself. I mean, when you get right down to it, I actually think the situation would have been even worse if Kamala was in there, because you're talking about a person that would have hit it so much better. Trump has just accelerated it to such a point at which nobody can ignore it. That's essentially what happened. You've had somebody like her in there. She would have done everything that she was told. She would have put on a pretty face and expression in front of the camera. Nobody would have been questioning her. We would still be in the honeymoon phase of the first Madam President. And all the while, those fucking kids would be getting mass slaughtered still. But now, as a result of everything that's going on, I have been saying it, man, for the longest time. We are not going to save the Palestinian people. It's not going to happen. But what we can do and what we must do is break free of the Israel stranglehold here in the United States. And we can do it.
I think we shouldn't let them die. Unfortunately, there's a lot of children, women dying in vain. And make it mean something.
Must not let them die in vain. That's our job.
Yep.
There must be retribution for all of this. Must be. Like I said, Peter Saddington is coming on the live stream on Monday. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about you want to talk about the real Jewish banking conspiracy? We're going to talk about that on Monday, because there is a part of it that is real, that people don't want to talk about. And no, it's not just the Rothschilds, although they do play a big role. But there is this insulated, contained part of their culture. Not all of them, by no means, but there is a part of them that have systemically taken over our country. And we have to unravel it. Like, it has to happen. There is no even playing field. And we are being driven straight to hell because, I mean, you could say Netanyahu's to blame. He is. He's not the only one. I think Ben Gvir and Smerch are even more insane than he is.
Oh, yeah. They want him out of there so they can go even worse.
They don't think they're moving along fast enough.
Yep.
They don't think that we're, I mean, in the end, they really thought that they were going to drag us into World War III by going after Iran. They learned very quickly that, oh, no, that's not happening. But we're also living in a world today where you got people as psychotically intelligent as Peter Thiel, who in their mind, it's like, we'll just drone them all. Set off one big drone bomb and just kill everybody. And their lack of, I mean, again, I don't know how much more obvious it has to be with somebody like Thiel. If you didn't see that interview with him, I forget the gentleman who conducted it.
Wasn't the New York Times, I believe it was, or Washington, I forget which one.
Yeah, it was a couple months ago. And you could just see, there's nothing behind his eyes.
Yeah.
Like, he asked him, do you care about humanity? He's like, no.
Dude is gone, man. Yeah. He's almost like a robot.
Yeah, like he's gone. And that is where, in my opinion, that's the difference when it comes to somebody like Fuentes, because he's right. He understands that whether we like him or not, whether we agree on certain issues or not, whether you believe that the United States needs to maintain itself as a white majority nation, all of that shit doesn't mean anything if we don't realize that people like Peter Thiel and the state of Israel is what will ultimately destroy us all. It's like the nuclear, it's the thermonuclear annihilation of all of humanity, and it's coming through them. So all this other stuff that we get ourselves so concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a big Tim Pool supporter, for example, and And now it's not even a right-left politics or Democrats or whatever. It's more about this. It's more who's willing to talk about this. And there's a different coalition building right now. I'm seeing a lot of people, not just yourself, but others who are kind of listening to people on the other side and vice versa now. And it's like, it's not even really a big deal anymore. It's like, it's a new kind of political, I think, underbelly going forward. So I don't know if it's going to be there for 2028 strong enough, but I'm optimistic that the youth, they don't care about a Republican, a Democrat. They don't care about an AOC if AOC is not doing what she needs to do. They don't care about it. So I'm kind of optimistic for the next half generation.
I agree, man. And I still want to maintain cautious optimism. And the reason I say that is because I do think a lot of people are finally waking up to the realities of what's going on. And I do want to point out something. Believe it or not, the person that Fuentes was talking about when he said, I would rather have this person in charge than somebody who's a Zionist controlling New York City was Zohran Mamdani. That's who he was talking about. And that's initially why I wanted to have this conversation, because when Fuentes said what he said about Zohran, I'm like, you know what? Maybe he is being truthful. Maybe this really is an honest, principled decision.
Oh, it definitely is. Oh, yeah, it definitely is. He's not a supporter of him, but he'll put the hierarchy, like, what's the list of priorities? He's not going to do the slop like you see from Matt Walsh and them and just go against Zohran for a reason that's not principled. Like, he's a socialist. Who cares if he's a socialist or not? That's not a legitimate reason to go after him. The politics are bigger than that now.
Oh, absolutely. But there's also, as I said, when the pretty redhead goes on TV and starts it does the viral TikTok video that, Wall Street apes and Wall Street Mav are spreading around, and all of them are saying all that bullshit. You have to remember, there are millions of people going through the same thing. Like, this is not a small thing. This is everything. This is the whole country. And the system of capitalism is imploding on itself. And the fact of the matter is, these so-called gatekeepers, who we all know are getting paid to do this, are the ones that are seeing through that the truth about why it's happening never gets discussed. Never the real reason why some people are suffering, or most people, I should say, are suffering to the extent that they're suffering. They want to just swipe it away. These are all gatekeepers. The Democratic establishment doesn't. We all know who they are. We know who JoJo from Jersey and David Pakman and Brian Tyler Cohen, and I can name them all. Just like you've got Matt Walsh, you've got Ben Shapiro, you've got David,
Dave Rubin,
slipping my mind.
Benny Johnson,
Benny fucking Johnson. God damn.
Cat Turd, Tim Pool.
Benny Johnson's another motherfucker who never properly had his ass kicked.
I like Benny. Right? No, I know he's in that group. Don't get me wrong, but yeah.
No, but listen, you know what it's like? It's like when he went after AOC because of the fact that AOC actually grew up in a middle to upper middle class family in the Westchester suburbs, the suburbs of New York, in Westchester County, New York, and she claims that she's from the Bronx. I'm like, why in the fuck do you say you're from the Bronx when you're clearly not? And you give cannon fodder to this shithead to go there, make a video, get 1 million views off of it, make more money, and grow his channel even more because you're a fucking liar. Why do you have to do that? There's nothing behind that. Why does Jasmine Crockett have to attack Greg Abbott because he's paralyzed and lives his life in a wheelchair because he can't walk anymore? Why not just attack his policies? Let me assure you, one of the things that they went after when they were redistricting in Texas, they were like, oh, we're getting her out. Like, she's going bye-bye because she didn't know when to shut up. Because for them, this is about a career. This isn't about serving. This isn't about how the hell do we help people. It's about me. How do I make it about me? And I've got to be in the spotlight. Marjorie Taylor Greene has turned a corner. We'll see if she keeps it. I hope she does. I think she woke up one morning and said, my kids are fucked. And I got to do something.
I agree. But here's, I would like to see her do something with, to me, AOC is just completely phony. I'm not a fan. I think Ilhan Omar, she's very bright, and I would like to. I would give MTG props if she would kind of build something with Ilhan Omar or
Ilhan's,
anybody else on the line.
I love her. I think Ilhan's amazing. I
But,
mean, I know
but,
her.
but see, why aren't they building a coalition though? That's my problem with both of
Well,
them.
who's to say that they're not? I mean, it is.
What do they do? What have they done?
Maybe they're doing it behind the scenes. We just don't know.
It's got to be public. I mean, they've been there for quite a bit now. I'm just disappointed because they're letting stuff. You don't have to agree on everything. I think Matt Gaetz actually probably built more with them than MTG, but that's my problem with Thomas Massie. Don't get me wrong. He's the best of the worst there, but I still don't see any kind of like politics is building a coalition. Nick Fuentes is doing better at that than Thomas Massie.
Yeah, but that's also the thing. This is sort of like a good place to wind down the conversation. We cannot rely on these fucking people to do anything right. I love Thomas Massie, and I don't expect him to lead any coalition. I've loved Bernie for years. Bernie has shown us time and again he's not the guy. He's not going to lead it. So stop asking him. As far as anybody in left populist movements, the best thing you got going for you right now is probably Jon Stewart. That's probably the best shot you got. And that's really not saying much because it also goes to show you how depleted they really are. This country is not rallying, as much as I hate saying it. This country is not rallying behind two Muslim women, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. I wish they would. I wish this country wasn't as, I mean, people think that this country hates black people, and yes, there is certainly a portion of it that does, but there is no greater hatred in the United States for a different culture than how people feel about brown-skinned Muslims. They are the most hated by far. As far as they're concerned, they don't belong here. They should never be here. Their way of thinking is wrong. It's not Judeo-Christian values as they want you to believe, and so they want them out. I don't want them out. In fact, I would encourage everybody, if you've never been to a mosque, to go to one and see what it's really like in a place like that, because it isn't anything that you think. In fact, they're probably the most accepting people I've ever been around of any religious denomination. So I would encourage people to open their horizons a little bit. Just try it. You'd be surprised how many people you could connect with. I think we should do this again. I feel like you are the Nick Fuentes whisperer. You are definitely the person who understands where he's coming from. I think you tampered with some of the concerns that I think we may have had. My opinion has not changed, but like I said, you take the good with the bad, because right now, the most important issues to me that matter in this moment, Fuentes is fighting on the right side of them.
Yeah, and I think the big picture is we need more people like you and Jen who come as good faith to listen to somebody, no matter what the people say about them or whatever else. You come and you make your own opinions. You're not scripted. You're not bought out. And that's all that matters. I think, Nick, I think the Groypers would respect that. Because if you disagree respectfully, I've never had a problem with the Groyper or Nick Fuentes. So I appreciate where you're coming from. Your voice is obviously much needed in these times, and great to hear you breaking it down. Not afraid to break it down.
Always a pleasure to have you, my friend. And look, right there, and David Hunter is one of our top OGs. Marjorie talks a big game, but then she goes and buys Palantir stock. As I said, if you think politicians are going to get us out of this, and if you think you can vote your way out of this, well, you're already lost, pal. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, that's why
I appreciate what Marge is saying, but Margie's also there to make her money, just like everybody else.
Yep.
We're a broken republic. Maybe we'll salvage it someday, but these conversations help get us a little closer. Appreciate you as always, brother, and I hope to talk with you again soon.
All right. Thanks a lot. Peace.
I'll see you. So that is our good friend Osiris over at the Stuck in the Middle podcast. And of course, Index Red TV. Check that out if you can, guys. And remember one more time, as you know, we are doing what we can to grow our small but mighty and flourishing channel. We were at I think about 450 live viewers at one point, so we've been doing pretty solid tonight. But make sure you go to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And we have received a handful of additional super chats. So we want to give a shout out to our guys that have been doing a huge part in our growth tonight. Thank you, JG1982, for the $2. Always appreciate your support. And of course, a $5 contribution. We all have a Nick in our family, I bet. Hey, look, you know what? We all have a lot of different people with a lot of different political opinions that remind us of probably a close family member or two, whether we agree with them or not. Let me tell you, Christmas dinner at my Aunt Marie's was always the best. Because my grandmother, who was a liberal, FDR liberal, and my Uncle Sal, who was a Vietnam conservative, they would get into these tussles at the Christmas dinner table. That was absolutely hysterical because Sally would always poke the shit out of my grandmother. You had to be there to see it, to understand. Just, it was kind of out of love, but you know what? It got pretty agitating at the same time. And it was always the liberal who always got really upset. Just saying. Michael Crawford, thank you so much for the $4.99. Fuentes speaks for the silent majority. He is getting too big to silence. Young white men are a gigantic voting bloc. He's just saying how we feel. Hey, look, Michael, I don't have to agree with you on much, but we definitely agree that Nick Fuentes is a voice, a huge voice, for millions of disaffected men in this country right now. So I appreciate you being here, appreciate your contribution, even if we disagree. JG1982 with the $5. Nick is a WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Hard to overlook that about him. Breeding ground for Zionist. He plays off religious squabbling. I don't know if you're implying that he's a closet Zionist. I would definitely not agree with that. I think his disdain for Zionism is real. But as far as him being on the WASPy side of things, I'm not going to dispute that. I think that that's, if that's his ethnic makeup, and so be it. I mean, he's certainly white. But again, that's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other from where I stand. The progressive lefty, pleasure as always. Religion is about controlling the masses. Hey, you got no argument from me, man. That's not breaking any headlines. That's something that I think we all should be able to agree on. Period. Sable, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member now. You are one of our favorites, and we really appreciate your support. JG1982 with the $2. Nick was groomed by Alex Jones. Alex Jones! Yeah, I would say that there's definitely some similarities there. But hey, you know what? As crazy as Alex Jones is, has anybody seen the video that he made on the 12th of September, 2001? Go look that up. Man, he's crazy, but he definitely knows a thing or two. Cyan, thank you so much for the $20. Figures, I'm always an hour late and $1 short. I appreciate it. You still checked in. That means a lot. We'll catch the last 30 minutes later. In my opinion, he is more right than wrong as we have an internal civil war on who speaks for the right. No, I think Nick Fuentes speaks for the right. I would say that he does. At least in terms of a person who I think genuinely believes what he's saying. He's not grifting through it. I think he really believes it. Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, those are the ultimate grifters. There's several others you could throw in there as well. But they're the two biggest, and they're the two biggest gatekeepers right now. And Fuentes is obviously trying to take them down. Kenman with the $2.79 Canadian A. Neckbeards always sexually frustrated and angry. Well, I would recommend that they shave them, work out, get some good sleep, and eat healthy. If they do those things, I think they'd be a lot less angry. And Teresa, love you. Thank you so much for gifting $5. We changed it. It finally happened. 5 revolutionary change memberships. It was saying generational change for the longest time. It finally changed. Fantastic. So now, if you would be so inclined, a bunch of you will now become members, which is awesome. And so I can't thank you guys enough again for this amazing support. But we do have one more story this evening that I do want to cover. Now, a lot of times people have an opinion about, in this case, Nick Fuentes and his bigotry and whether it's real, whether it's played up for clicks, whether it's misunderstood. Here's one thing that I know for an absolute certainty that's not played up for clicks, that absolutely is real when it comes to hard-nosed, full-on bigotry, and that is Bill Maher. There is no question that Bill Maher is a bigot, especially when it comes to Muslims. He hates them like nobody's business. He has always hated them like nobody's business. And of course, he is a rabid Zionist. Now, is he a Zionist because I believe his mother's Jewish, I think, which obviously could play a role. He was Catholic, or I think he was raised Catholic. So it wasn't like he was raised as a Christian Zionist. However, he is somebody who, if anybody has been watching him over the years, you would know that Bill Maher has never shied away for how much he hates Muslims. And I do think that part of his rabid pro-Zionist, pro-Israel sentiments that he has been throwing out there for the longest time, in my opinion, a lot of that stems from the fact that he has always felt this way about the Muslim community. How do I know this? Because here's a little video compilation of Bill Maher addressing the Muslim community.
New rule: if converting to Islam is all it takes to get the terrorists off our backs, then all I have to say is,
Islam is the motherlode of bad ideas. It comes from a hate-filled holy book, the Quran. The most popular name in the United Kingdom, Great Britain, this was in the news this week, for babies this year was Muhammad. Am I a racist to feel I'm alarmed by that? Because
yes, you are. Yes, you are. But I don't even know if he necessarily cares or thinks that he isn't one. I think he's just gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, you people think you know better than me. Yeah, well, actually, in many ways, we do know better than you. But here's a classic example of a super libtard who grew up in the suburbs. He ended up being a really smart dude. He ended up going to an Ivy League school, though Cornell is debatable because it's considered the bottom feeder of all Ivies. Honestly, he wears this on his sleeve. He's looking at Zach Galifianakis of all people, asking himself, am I a racist because I think that the name Mohammed being the #1 name in America is disturbing? Yeah, it is. But this is certainly not a surprise coming from him.
I am. When that stuff is in your head, it just gives you this neurological disorder.
talk to women who've ever dated an Arab man. The reviews are not good. If Muslim men could get laid more, we wouldn't have this problem.
They're violent because they threaten us, and they are threatening. They bring that desert stuff.
It's a culture of suicide bombing.
Hundreds of millions of them support an attack like this.
Most Muslims,
Vast numbers of Muslim people.
Vast majorities of Muslims say
Absolutely.
that?
Most Muslim people.
Most Muslim people in the world do condone violence.
it's
The worst part about being an overeducated liberal is that you're so damn sure about everything that you don't even hesitate to question, maybe I might be wrong here. Maybe I shouldn't say this. But he doesn't care. Not even a little bit. Even if he's wrong, he doesn't care. He is an extremely wealthy individual who still chases women. In this case, I think he's chasing women that are like 40 years younger than he is. I mean, listen, don't hate the player, hate the game. But the guy is a man-child if there ever was one. Like, he really is. And he's not that funny. Actually, he's not funny at all. I actually went to one of his stand-up comedy shows once, and I realized, oh, Now I know why you have such a successful show. It's because you have great writers. It has nothing to do with you.
Been going on 1,000 years, this problem between Islam and the West. I'm not an Islamophobe. That's wrong. I am a truth lover.
I didn't know that there was a difference. But heck, you learn something new every day. And of course, for those of you who may remember this clip from, I believe it was 2013, 2014, this was when Ben Affleck was, I believe the last time he may have been a guest on the show, and he was there with Sam Harris, and Sam Harris was spewing his anti-Muslim bullshit, and he was getting Bill Maher to basically gang up on Ben Affleck with him on this issue. Surprisingly, not really.
Saying that Islamophobia is not a real thing. That if you're critical of something...
Well, it's not a real thing when we do it.
Right.
Well, no, it really isn't. Radicalized Muslims is a unique and greater threat. It is the greatest threat. It's the only religion that acts like the mafia.
God, does he suck. And the truth is, I bring up Bill Maher because I used to watch his show. Like I did. I watched it pretty regularly, and I actually thought it was somewhat informative. I mean, look, he used to have George Carlin as guests. He had really great guests, but then he won full shit lib of the worst guy. Remember when Bernie was first running for president back in the summer of 2015, and he had him on as a guest, and one of the first things that he did was talk about how, I want to help your campaign. I want to see you get the nomination. I want you to be the next president. And at that time, I'm thinking, Bill, that's amazing. You really do mean what you say. And then slowly but surely, it all changed very, very quickly. I am amazed in so many ways how tone deaf some people really are about these problems that we are facing right now, especially with Israel. But I will tell you, I don't know if this is shocking or to be pretty much expected. And I really do believe that there is going to be a reckoning for a lot of people that have done the things that they have done. I am really concerned about all this, but what I will say is that if any of you have not heard of James Kirchick, he's a Zionist scumbag of the highest order. And Bill Maher just had him on last Friday. And here's what he had to say.
We have to really appreciate the unprecedented nature of this conflict that Israel is in right now. This is the first time that a country was invaded by a sadistic, depraved...
I mean, right away, you can just see part of the reason, whether it is the New York Times, any of these other organizations, they all have... First of all, they all have the most stereotypical dispositions, whether it's the way they look, whether it's the way they talk, whether it's the way they dress. It's so fucking typical. And this guy is a contributing opinion writer at the New York Times. Yeah, contributing my ass. This is who they turn to. This is who they want to get information from. Bullshit.
Enemy that came in, murdered 1,200 people, took 250 hostages.
In total, about 300 people, still terrible, but about 300 people were killed by Hamas. The other 900 people were killed by Israel. And yet this fuckhead is out there still spewing this garbage. Jen has said it best for the longest time. One person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. That has never changed, and it never will. And the idea that they are still going forward with this bullshit, this narrative, 1,200 people killed, 250 hostages, rapes, all that stuff. You know how many Palestinian hostages there are? Over 10,000. You know how many Palestinians have been mass murdered? Probably 500,000. And many more are going to die because of the famine. But this fuckhead who lives in the ivory towers of New York City and writes for the New York Times, he knows what's going on. This is the type of person who would say, I don't feel safe on Columbia University's campus. Bet you he made his pilgrimage in Jerusalem.
We haven't heard about them, by the way. There's some of them left right now. And then these evil, evil men, they built a 500-mile tunnel structure underground with materials that was given to them by the international community to actually build homes and schools and something productive. They use that as a bomb shelter for themselves. And they don't let any civilians come down when Israeli bombs rain down on them. So how can Israel, win this war? I think we all agree Hamas has to go because of...
The funny thing about that is that since the start of this genocide, do you know that Hamas has increased its numbers because so many people that have had their families mass murdered have been joining Hamas? Yeah, we totally have to stop Hamas. That's the answer. That's exactly what the problem is. We don't do enough, do we? No. No, why would we? We have to deal with guys like this, these bureaucrats, these fat bastards that stand in the way of progress. Let's see what happens if he had to put on an IDF uniform. Let's see how tough he is. He isn't. But he sure as hell would like to put as many people to death as he possibly can. And when somebody says we have to get rid of Hamas, that is the smoke signal to say we must continue this genocide. Because remember, it doesn't have to be a New York Zio Jew that says this that has to make it stick. No, Israelis will say the real thing, which is we have to kill them all. That's the answer. Right? But no, what this guy is saying, and of course there will be no pushback whatsoever, is that the genocide will continue, period.
If Hamas is left in power at the end of this conflict, I can tell you, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, they will start another pointless war, and the Palestinian people will be the chief victims of it.
And
again.
no doubt. Listen, there's no doubt.
I can't. They're so fucking pathetic. And Hamas will, and the Palestinians will be the ones to suffer from it. There is not enough ass kickings in the world to go around for pieces of shit like guys like that. There's just not enough. I mean, kick them in the fucking teeth. Ooh, I tell you, my Irish blood, it's fuming. It's up here.
Jack, one thing before we run out of time, because this is important. We are a catch-up on the news show, and what you just said, we all agree that Hamas has to go. Until yesterday, we did not all agree. As of yesterday, the Arab League.
Yeah.
The Arab League. Let's not bury the lead here. The Arab League, 22 Arab countries got together and said, Hamas, you're over. That's huge. Yep. That the Arabs themselves are saying, this is a bad organization and these people have to go. You need.
The type of shit that comes out of Bill Maher's mouth about what's really going on here, he's just talking about what they want to do in order to end this. He's not going to talk about the fact that they want Israel out of the equation too. He's only telling part of the story. And why would he not tell only part of it? It's all he's got. He's so full of shit. And he's so, again, this is the problem with super educated liberals. You can never convince them that they're wrong. There's a difference between an undereducated conservative, let's say Christian Zionist, who doesn't know any better, versus an overeducated liberal who thinks they know everything. And he doesn't. He's convinced that he does. And he's putting this out there to his audience. And they're going to eat it up. What I will say, that's a good thing, is that his audience is pretty old. He's not getting new youngins to watch his stuff. This is the equivalent of what NPR pretty much was. Or Michael Savage, Imus in the Morning. That's who he is. He's just a curmudgeonly old bastard now. He always was, but now it's really showing.
To disarm and give up. And of course, this all could have ended if they just had surrendered, which obviously they're beaten, but they don't want to do that.
They're beaten. Oh, Hamas is beaten. I didn't know that. Stop the presses, guys. I didn't realize that Hamas surrendered. They're beaten. Did you know that? That's news to me. That's a new one. Newsflash, Hamas has given up. This motherfucker. Keep in mind, I'm also very critical of guys with big chips on their shoulders who are not very tall. Bill Maher's about 5'7". So I'm always skeptical of those guys who always have a little bit of extra overcompensation that they have to throw out there to the world. What's going to happen a week from now, month from now, year from now? And Hamas is still going strong. And this guy is talking about a whole bunch of, and of course he calls them Arab countries, that they want Hamas out of there. Again, they want everyone out of there. Not just one, but everybody. And to leave the Palestinians alone. Way past that now. Remember, the only reason anything has ever gotten to this point is because financially it was beneficial to allow it to. The Palestinians were simply casualties of war. That's what happened here. And this son of a bitch has been preaching pro-Israel bullshit since day one. So when we talk about the future and those people that we must bring to heel, if you will, for their crimes against humanity, and Lord knows he is as guilty as anybody, Bill Maher is one of those people. He's one of the absolute worst. But how could he not be when you hear how he talks about Muslims? When he talks with Mr. Cursing, Mr. New York Times, Zion-Nazi. That's who he brings on. You really think Bill Maher would ever have the balls to bring on a pro-Palestine? He'll never bring on Dr. Cornel West again. Ever. He'll never bring on Ben Affleck. Those, if there's one thing that I'm confident in saying, because I don't watch Bill Maher anymore and I haven't for years, I guarantee you, and anyone who still watches him in the audience will probably say the same thing. I guarantee you that he never brings on an anti-Israel or pro-Palestine voice. Ever. Ever. Because he's too much of a fucking coward to do it. Sometimes when we get clips that do well, 10, 20, 30,000 views, I hope that some of them get back to the people that I'm calling out because I want them to see what cowardly fucks they are, like Bill Maher. And when this clip drops, and if it does well, I hope he hears about it. I do, because you're a fucking coward, Bill Maher. You're everything that you think you're not, but you really are. You're the worst. Fuck you. And a good night. We do have some more super chats before we end for the evening. Again, 442 live viewers. You guys have been on fire. Love each and every one of you being here, even the ones I don't agree with. But I am very pleased to have, we're all very pleased to have such an incredible audience checking in this evening. And again, you guys have just been an incredible, what's even more amazing is that most of you stick around all the way to the end. And that means so much. It really does, because it helps boost the numbers. One last time, patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty, and as you can see, growing channel. And of course, Kenman on fire with the commentary. I love it. Allegedly, Bill Maher smells like Preparation H. Well, I tell you, he's certainly wealthy enough where he doesn't necessarily have to smell like that. Although maybe that's his preference. Anything's possible. Kenman again with the 279 Canadian. A true story. Kerchick's mother was a bat. But is that like a vampire bat or just a bat rat, type of person? Either way, it's kind of scary. JG 1982 with the $20 super sticker. Love you, brother. Really appreciate you. And $2 from Noah Linden. Great to see you. Congratulations on getting so close as we are to 50,000 subs. As of this moment, as we check our live stream, we now sit at 49,390 subscribers. Guys, we are just over 600 subscribers away from 50,000. Who could have guessed it? Who could have guessed that this was an absolute growth spurt that we could never have anticipated, but are extremely grateful that we have gotten to this point. Huckleberry Hound with the one revolutionary change membership. And Jen, if you're in the chat, look what we got here. Revolutionary change is now official. It no longer says generational change. So one less reminder of the old way, and it's the new way. So thank you so very, very much. And yeah, I like I said, guys, I hope you're all having a great time in the chat. I know when a chat gets to be this size, there's going to be certain people who are going to make certain commentary. Certain people are going to say things about me. Doesn't bother me. Don't be attacking the guests. Don't be attacking other people in the chat. Just be nice. If any of you have seen the movie Roadhouse, which is Jen's husband's favorite movie, remember Patrick Swayze's most important rule for working at the Double Deuce: be nice. So I ask everybody in the chat, be nice. It's really important that you do. And if we're going to have a lot more of the America First supporters joining us on a regular basis, you are more than welcome here, as long as you conduct yourself and be treated the way that we'll treat you. That's all I ask. If you don't, well, then you could go find another channel. We're building a big thing here. The cross collaboration will continue. We will continue to collaborate with those who truly understand that the only way this thing grows and becomes powerful is if we can set our differences aside. Now, I think a lot of people here understand that, and there are others who don't. Not everybody's going to agree, and not everybody's going to get along, but do everything in your capacity to try your best to do so. Noah, thank you so much for the $2. Bill Maher looks like a rubber chicken. I can't envision it, but I appreciate it. JG 1982 with the $5. Good job, Peter. Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, Cooper, I know you didn't contribute, but I caught that comment, so of course I had to pull it up. I said this on the last live stream. So I do look like Steve Buscemi, and I've also been told I look like Biff from Back to the Future. And I recently saw the movie The Hudsucker Proxy, which starred Tim Robbins. Now, Tim Robbins, my father looks like Tim Robbins. Oh, that's what I've been told. I don't see it as much, but I get it. And there is a scene in the movie The Hudsucker Proxy in which Steve Buscemi's character is talking to Tim Robbins' character. And all I could think of the entire time was I was speaking to my father, like we were having a conversation. So it was fun. And a reminder that even in these difficult times, it's hard to smile, to laugh, to be happy. I know how frustrating it could be and how difficult it can be at this time. But I ask you all to maintain whatever semblance of hope and faith that you have, because I do believe we're turning a corner. It may not be happening nearly as quickly as we would like, but it is happening. And so, with that said, all of you here, I can't thank you enough. It is extremely gratifying. I mean, even to see 450 live viewers at a time, in some ways is hard to wrap your head around it. I mean, we were doing live streams where we were getting, if we got 40 people, we thought we were flying high. We were doing good. And we know the people in the chat that were there when we were at that number. JG1982, Henry Kajawa, David Hunter, Donald James, Sable, Teresa. And as we've grown, it really is, it's like I said, it means something, because in the end, the message is what matters. I wouldn't expect you guys to be here if not for the message, because that's the key. I hope I've articulated those points well tonight, especially when it comes to somebody like Nick Fuentes. It's not an easy subject to talk about, but it's absolutely necessary. Thank you all. Love you all. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We'll see you Monday. Have a great night, and free Palestine.